Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Town of Islip Planning Board for Wednesday, October 29th. If you're a member of the public who would like to speak on any of the applications that have a public hearing next to it, there are yellow cards in the back. Please fill one out and hand it in up front, and we'll call you during that public hearing. We ask applicants to please keep their applications and their presentations to 30 minutes or less, and each member of the community to 3 minutes or less. Can I ask everybody to please stand for the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Just for housekeeping purposes, if you're here for item number 6, Roy Bishop, PB 2025-022, that has been adjourned, will not be heard this evening. Our first item on the agenda, site plan modification, public hearing, VJ Alreja, SP 2025-009, south side of Carlo Road, 350 feet east of Johnson Avenue, Bohemia, 89 Carlo Road. Applicant requests a buffer and parking relaxation in connection with site work for an existing industrial building. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Guy W. Germano, 450 Veterans Memorial Highway, Holbrook, New York, 11741. For the applicant, I have with me today Mr. VJ Arija, who is the principal and of the company VJ Tech, as well as...
Can I just ask you either to move the mic closer or speak directly into the mic?
Yeah, is that better? Okay, I'm losing my voice, so. Mr. VJ Arija, who's the principal owner of the property, in the subject property, as well as the principal of VJ Tech, the company occupying the property. Also I have with me is Karen Ventura, Director of Human Resources, and Anthony Garrett, Project Architect, Bigelow Garrett Group Architects and Planners. And as you stated, Mr. Chairman, the application is for site plan modification in connection with the reduction in parking, and we'll go through that. Just orient the board.
I'm going to need you to either pull that closer to you and speak in the mic or take the mic with you. She's trying to keep a record.
The property is located on Carlo Road, right just off of Johnson Avenue. So here is, the subject property is here, 89 Carlo Road, and I'm just going to briefly mention that the company or the principal also owns 95 Carlo Road, adjacent to it, and they just purchased, I believe 2 weeks ago, 105 Carlo Road, and they also own this vacant land on the corner, so they've made an assemblage. Now, as part of this application, we also have to go to as part of our application process, we have an application pending with the Zoning Board of Appeals for an area variance for mezzanine that we installed in an existing approved addition to the building. And they want us to come here first, so we're here first. And just by way of explanation about some of the stuff that's gone on, we filed our first application in January 21 of 25, and then went to the planning board on March, I believe, 25th. And then sometime after that, in April, the town board passed a new resolution with regard to extending extending the setbacks adjacent to residential to 35 feet. So what you see is, our attempt to comply with that, as well as practically speaking, be able to operate the premises the way it was intended to be from the original site plan approval. I'd like just for a moment to introduce Mr. Arija in order to give the board a brief understanding of the company, how long they've been in Islip, and what they do, and why they're expanding here. VJ? And I'm losing my voice, if you can't tell.
Thank you, Joy. So I'm happy to take anything that you folks have as questions, but otherwise, VJ Technology has been a part of the Islip Township as headquarters for our company for almost 35 years. We've been working here. The company is in its 39th year, and we feel that Islip is home to us and has been for a long time, and we have seen a fair amount of growth in the business, and we enjoy what we do in Islip, and we'd love to see us do more here. So the company primarily is an X-ray company. We make X-ray systems for applications from medical to industrial to scientific use and R&D in the fields of AI, materials development, and in the technology world for aerospace, nuclear, automotive, and the security world. So that's an overview of the company. And we feel that we can grow more, do more R&D, and bring better high-paying jobs to the area. And we'd like to see how we keep the town engaged and make sure that we are setting good examples in the town as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Vijay. In order to spare you listening to me, I'm going to ask Anthony Garrett to come up and go through the site plan, and then also show you the campus plan that we've developed and how that segues into our request for site plan relief. Want me to do anything?
No, it's okay. Good evening, everyone. Anthony Garrett, Bello Garrett Group, Architects and Planners, 161 Main Street, Ridgefield Park, New Jersey. So, in the interest of being brief, we know where the site is. This is the aerial. It is adjoining residential properties to the east and south of the property of 89 Carlo Road. VJ Technologies, or its sister companies, owns this parcel and the other 3 parcels out to Johnson Avenue. The subject of this application is 89 Carlo Road, where we have the building exists. It has been modified with interior alterations over the years. The parking requirements for the building, based upon the current ordinance, requires 45 stalls. It is short. The total required, we can fit 35 stalls on the site. And that is due to meeting the requirements for the buffer. Over the years, which happens with a lot of industrial uses, there was some creep into the required buffer. We're restoring that back to pervious coverage to the requirements when the building was designed of 25 feet. After our application, as Mr. Germano stated, the town changed the requirements to 35 feet. However, that does present some hardships, which I'll get to a little later on in the testimony. In order to make up that shortage of 10 parking spaces, we analyzed the 3 properties that are owned by VJ Technologies, and that is depicted on our campus plan here. This being 89, this being 95, and this being 105 Carlo Drive, which they recently purchased. Based upon the square footages and areas of all 3 buildings, and combining the available parking on those sites and meeting the standards of 1 per 1,000 for industrial use and 1 per 200 for the office use, there's a breakout of 15% versus 85%. 15% is office, 85% is industrial use. The sum total of all 3 properties requires 84 parking stalls, whereas there are 90 3 parking stalls when all of those properties are considered together. And we feel that since these are all the same company, that it makes sense to kind of analyze this as a campus. It's really three properties. To that end, we are connecting the properties with proper sidewalks so that if somebody were parking at 105 Carlo Road, they would have safe pedestrian access to either 95 or 89 Carlo Road without crossing through parking stalls. We did get a comment about there's a pathway in front of 89 Carlo Road. I think it was the recommendation by the engineering staff that we construct a real sidewalk there. We've spoken to our client. We have no issue with putting in a compliant sidewalk. The other issues of concern were the buffer, and the green area depicts the area that is green. The building setback off of, we'll call it the east property line, is 25 feet right now. And we are restoring eliminating parking and restoring an area to the northeast side of the property to meet that 25-foot setback. In addition to that, the requirement for a fence, we are meeting that. It'll have either stockade or a pre-finished vinyl face on it, which will help give privacy to the adjoining residential neighbors, and also put a barrier up between the two properties, which should help mitigate any noise that might emanate from our site. I'm going to defer to the operations people in terms of the hours of operation, but we did analyze, this is my last exhibit, we did take a look at the 89 property and if a 35-foot buffer would actually work. It would be a hardship on the site for 2 reasons. One, from a life safety issue, it would make it very difficult for emergency responders to get behind the building to put out a fire. These buildings are not required to be sprinkled, so we want to make sure that fire apparatus can get all around the building to extinguish a fire. And secondly, there are loading facilities along the north side of the building, and if we were to put a 35-foot buffer in beyond what was required when the building was built, it really precludes proper truck access. The truck maneuverability would go into that 35-foot buffer area. So therefore, we're requesting the relief back to the 25-foot, which is what was in place when the building was designed and constructed, and has it would function properly at 25 feet. Other than that, I don't think there's too much other direct testimony. If you want to ask me questions.
Thank you, Tony. I just want to point out that where we could leave 35 or greater than 25, we will. We have no problem with it, as long as we can operate the facility. Now, if you'd like us, I mean, we can discuss the operation of the property. If you'd like me to do that, I can have.
I'd like to hear what your plans are for the landscaping in that buffer area. I mean, if you're saying you can't do
Tony,
it in...
do the landscaping.
In accordance with the subdivision and land regulations, we are going to have a densely planted evergreen buffer, combination of arborvitae and other evergreens, in a pattern with smaller shrubs in between the arborvitae and the fence itself. It'll be heavily landscaped, and we will ensure, since it adjoins the building, we have the ability to irrigate it properly to ensure that the landscaping remains in place.
So I guess my question for you is this. Obviously, the property was there when the 25-foot buffer was the code. You're here before us because you've done things you weren't supposed to do on the property without coming before us. And that sort of made us take a look at a lot of things you did there that you weren't supposed to do. In terms of supplementing that planting with some superior planting that'll provide more shielding from the neighboring property as opposed to the standard planting. Are you okay with working with the planning and engineering staff on superior plantings in there that
Yeah,
would give,
my
and
client
provide
indicated they have no
more
problem
of a
with that.
sound barrier and more beautification over there? to
I'm
deal with
sorry?
that? That'll provide more of a sound barrier and beautification in terms of along that.
We have no problem with that.
Okay, that's sort of my question on that. I took you off topic. You were going to start on
No,
something
I was
else.
just going to answer any other questions.
If you have nothing else, I will go to public comment and come
Yeah,
back
and
for
then we'll come
questions. Okay,
Great, thank you.
so let's go to public comment, and then we'll come back.
Kenneth Eads?
Mr. Germano, we just need the microphone back from you.
Thank you. Hi, my name's Kenneth Eads. I am one of the neighbors behind VJ Technologies. We are in favor of the 35-foot buffer. If that's not the case, I guess the 25-foot will suffice. Through the years, we've actually had that diminished down to about 6 feet in certain areas. So as far as the trees, the lighting, the lights are on all night long. There's not enough trees to block that, so even with the shades drawn, it comes through the cracks. As far as the comment with the fire trucks, I mean, I think they only need 10, 12 feet to get through, which he has the radius for them to get through. So I see no reason why it would not work. Again, I'm speaking on behalf of our other neighbors. We'd like some privacy back. There was no questions asked prior to this work being done to make everything shallower. So I don't know why we have to, I guess, accept the fact it is what it is. We just want our privacy back. Lighting, sound, trucks come in all hours of the night, tractor trailers, forklifts. It's loud, it's obnoxious, and it's bright. Please give us our yards back.
Thank you. Sir, did you want to speak on this one? So bring the cards up here, we'll take them from you, and we'll call you.
Put the mic back in the...
Just state your name and address for the record, and go ahead.
Sandra Totoro, number 8 East Wind Court, Bohemia, New York, 11716. Okay, we have high regards with this situation as well. Again, the noise level is extremely loud. 6 a.m., we hear the landscape blowers. I know I'm all for, good landscaping and all, but at 6 a.m., I think it's a little excessive to hear blowers while we are still sleeping and we haven't, gone up for the day. Yes, the noise is extremely loud. The snow plows, I get it, there's snow, you have to plow. However, at 5 in the morning is excessive. And also the dumpster. There's a dumpster that gets dumped X amount of times a week, and that's at 5:30, 6:30 a.m. I think it's a little excessive that we have this noise level right behind us, and it's extremely bothersome. I'm all for, making the community better. I work in the community as well, and whatever, it takes to grow it, it's fine, I'm all for it, but the noise level is extremely loud at those times of the day.
Thank you. And just for clarification, I wrote down the dumpster, the landscaping, the plowing. Is there anything related to the operations in addition to that, or is it mainly those that are coming on site to provide services
Well,
there?
hopefully, on the construction side, that it will be within the time frame of the town code, what is it, Monday through Friday, during the working hours. I work for a construction company myself, and we have jobs that we are, work within the time frame of, you know, when you're supposed to be able to work.
Thank you.
Denise and Ron Legian?
Thank you. Hi, my name is Denise Leggero. I live at 6 East Wind Court. I live directly behind VJ Technology. Actually, my home is probably the one that's butts the closest to the facility. Overall, in general, they keep the property very clean. I will give them that. They have landscape, but there's not a sufficient enough landscaping to keep that barrier or that noise level down. As my neighbor had stated, every morning there is a dumpster that comes at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, and they are not quiet at all. Not that I expect it to be, but I feel like they're excessively loud with the things. When you have the grandchildren over or family relatives stay in the extra rooms, you can hear their complaints from obviously the noise. So the lights, they're on all night, which is great because it's a safety issue. Obviously, I understand that, but again, it's just the barrier between the landscaping and everything. As the neighbor stated, there's just sometimes too much of excessive noise. Especially, in my complaint, being so close, it would be the dumpster and the landscaping, the landscapers. My husband's sitting over here, he's actually approached the landscapers several times. It's like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning sometimes they come, and they're blowing leaves and everything. Like I said, they maintain the property, which is great, but overall in general, it's just the abundance of noise sometimes coming from the building. As to the operations of the building, there was a couple years ago, we did make a complaint. There was some discharge that was going off. That was corrected. Since then, we have not had any issues with that, but it's more or less just the general noise behind it. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Those are the only cards I have. Does anybody else want to speak on this application? Not seeing anyone. I'm going to turn to Ms. Dufresne for, oh, was there somebody else? Come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Ms. Dufresne, just 1 second. We have one more speaker.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And fill out the card afterward. Just speak and then fill out afterwards. Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Stephanie Cigarella, 250 Central Avenue. I think I'm probably the closest property. And so me and my husband just had a baby about 10 months ago. The lights through our entire back of the house is consistent. There is no tree buffer whatsoever. There's honestly zero privacy when me, my husband, family members, company, when everyone is over. Again, the property, I guess, is maintained. I really don't walk around, but the garbage being taken out at 4 or 5 a.m., and I'm usually up at that time because I do have an infant, but it's very early. And honestly, sometimes it's so loud that my infant actually wakes up when I finally put him in. But with everything, it's really the lighting and the sound, and we really just want privacy. So that's really all of what I want.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Dufresne?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The subject property, zoned Industrial 1, is an approximately 1.5 acre parcel currently improved with an approximately 25,000 square foot industrial building. The original structure received a certificate of occupancy in 1981. In 1998, the Board of Appeals approved an application number 523-98, granting relief for a floor area ratio and parking requirements to permit a single-story building addition. A certificate of occupancy for that addition was issued in 2002. The request before the board tonight is to restore the buffer to be in conformance with the prior approved 25-foot buffer and to establish off-site provisions for parking overage identified when the applicant filed for a certificate of compliance to maintain the mezzanine. Over time, parking was constructed within the 25-foot landscape buffer shown on the September 2000 approved site plan. The applicant proposes to remove the encroaching parking, restore the landscape buffer, providing variable widths of 25 feet to 35 feet in lieu of the currently required 35 feet. The 2002 addition placement prevents achieving a full 35-foot buffer to the south, and portions of the eastern buffer would be reduced to 26 feet to maintain the necessary vehicle access along the north side of the building. These revisions would be essentially restoring the buffer that was approved with the prior site plan approval. The dumpster is also proposed to be relocated out of the buffer as well, along the adjacent industrial property. A 6-foot high stockade fence is proposed along the property line abutting the residential AA zone. This fence would be attached to the existing chain link fence and would be installed in place of the currently required 8-foot tall sound attenuation fence, consistent again with the previously approved site plan. The mezzanine addition totals approximately 3,600 square feet and it's used primarily for equipment storage. Based on the current parking requirements, 45 spaces are required and 35 are provided, which is one more than the previously approved 34 spaces. There are currently 42 employees on site. The applicant has submitted a campus plan showing shared parking and pedestrian connections among the 3 adjacent properties under common ownership at number 89, 95, and 105 Carlo Road. Across the combined campus plan, 93 parking stalls are provided, exceeding the 84 required in total. The plan also includes construction of 4 previously land bank parking spaces on the east side of the building. To improve the on-site connectivity, a walking path and sidewalks are proposed to facilitate pedestrian movement between the 3 properties. A parking management plan, subject to engineering division review and approval, will be required to confirm full pedestrian connectivity and parking operations among the sites. Staff further recommends that the town engineer be granted authority to approve de minimis landscaping relaxations as needed to achieve full pedestrian connectivity between the properties. A full site plan review will be required by the engineering department. Additionally, a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals will be necessary to permit the increase in the floor area ratio from the allowable 35% to approximately 40% to account for the mezzanine addition. Based on the above information, the staff recommends that the planning board approve this application subject to attached conditions, and we can add additional conditions that the board would deem necessary to address the public comments.
Thank you, Ms. Dufresne. You actually led right into where I'm going to go with this. Mr. Germano, I just want to talk to you about hours, restricted hours for the landscaper, the dumpster being picked up, as well as snow plowing on the property. I would ask the staff that we put in reasonable hours so that at 5 a.m. people are not showing up doing those type of things, and as well as late at night. Would that be acceptable?
Karen Ventura, head of HR, who's actually in charge of all of this.
I don't want to say that, but
Just briefly, though,
Yep.
addressing the noise. Address the actual hours.
I'm going to ask you again, just to use the microphone. So we
I
keep
will. Yep, I will.
Whatever he's saying to you for the record.
Oh, so just start off by addressing actual hours of operation for the company. Don't forget, this is a R&D company. Mostly they're doing R&D, and there is not, well, Karen will explain it.
Good evening, thank you. The operating hours,
State your name and who you are for the
I'm
record, please.
sorry, Karen Ventura from VJ Technologies, 89 Carlo Road, Bohemia, New York, 11716. The operating hours for the business are 8 to 5. We allow for the employees to begin work anytime from 7:30 onward, and typically there's a presence on the building from 7:30 to 7 p.m. at night. The gate is open at 89 Carlo at 7 in the morning. We did receive the complaint about the garbage men, and we did speak to the garbage company about it and told them that they cannot come earlier and that we do not open the gate before that. I believe that any of the current noise might be from adjacent buildings at this point, because our gate in 89 doesn't open, but that doesn't excuse the fact that the garbage men do like to come earlier, and we have spoken to them repeatedly about it. Honestly, have not heard the complaint about the landscapers, and I'm sorry that that's an issue, and we can speak to them. That's an easy fix. In my opinion, the garbage men, the snowplow, and the landscapers are easy fixes. We can hold them to whatever hours are found reasonable within it. You know, we're more than interested and willing in working with the neighborhood. We did receive the complaint about the air compressor. We fixed it as soon as we could. We received the complaint about the garbage men. We thought that we addressed it. We'll have to work on that better. The landscapers, I was not aware, but it's an easy fix. Same thing with the snowplow. The lights, we did fix them to the best that we could. We were pointing them down. Taking them down is a little bit, turning them off is a little bit of a security risk, but we want to keep them pointing downward so that they are not extending into any of the properties. And we'll have those looked at again. You know, we want to make it, you know, a happy environment for both the neighborhood and us.
So a
More than willing
restriction,
to help.
nothing prior to 8 AM in terms of those 3 services you'd be okay with?
Yeah, yeah.
And then we can ask the town engineering department to come out and look at the lights to make sure they're dark sky compliant, which is the town
Absolutely.
code. I think plantings, and I want to go into plantings also. Can we do superior plantings? Can we do more
Yes.
mature plantings so that they're larger to start off with and may
Go over the fence.
shield that?
Yeah, and we already agreed to the fence as well. Yeah.
Do you want to ask something on that, Mr. Brown?
Oh, I'd just like to know, what is the fence you're putting up, the height, and what's it going to look like from the neighbor's side?
We're more than happy to work with you if you tell us what you want it for it to be. We're, you know, I think Guy had said to me that it needed to be a chain link with a stockade in front, correct?
Yes.
Can we do an 8-foot fence subject to the town engineering department approving?
Well, right now, I mean, you would do that, right?
Sorry, yes, we will do that, absolutely.
Okay.
And then we can ask town to come out on the dark sky compliant to make sure we're okay there. On the fire department, then I'm going to turn it over to other board members, sorry to hog everybody's time here. I understand you're there when it was 25 feet, you're only back for us now, and it's now 35 feet. Obviously, if there's a fire safety issue, you need to leave it open for the fire department. But in order for me to vote on that tonight, not for me, there's other board members may vote differently, but to give you the 25 instead of the 35, I would ask that our engineering department, again, look at that to confirm that the extra 10 feet can't be put in for the purpose that you stated. If they're okay with that, then I'm okay with that. But if in fact,
Just the trucks, correct?
Anthony Garrett again. It was 2 factors. One is the loading facilities on the building will not function. Trucks will not be able to get to those loading doors if we have a 35-foot buffer. In addition to that, the building already exists at 25 feet off the property line, the east wall of the building, east and south wall of the building. And again, if we were to set that buffer back with heavy plantings, it would be difficult to get fire apparatus around the back of that building. So the main concern, though, is it will render the loading facilities, it'll put them into inutility. They will not be able to use them.
okay, that's certainly a little different than the main representation a little while ago on that. I think the fire was sort of the main representation. I understand the loading was part of it.
In addition, if you have the, I don't know if you have the original approved plan from 2021, when the addition was put on. Just to note here, I mean, just it gets a little complicated in the back of the building here. There are a series of drains here in the back. Drains that are right back here. So we can't cover those up, and we have to get around here. That's all, really. Other than that, you know, we'll work with engineering on it. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're okay with subject engineering reviewing it and then,
Well, but they're going to see that we have the drains here.
I'm not questioning the drains, the loading dock, I just need to, I want to feel confident that the reason that we have to do this,
Well,
Is-
we've agreed to do, this is what we're agreeing to, and this is what we thought was presented here. We want the relief here, and back here, whatever's practicable is fine with us. We don't do anything back there other than, you know, we have the drain, we have the drainage back there.
and that's all I'm saying, is that I want engineering to look at that before I vote on that based on the representations made this evening. I want engineering to look at that before I vote on that this evening, you know, on your representation.
I can show you it on the plan.
You're missing my point.
I'm fine.
I understand what the plan looks like. I just want to make sure that engineering confirms the fire life safety issue is actually there, that the drainage issue is something that would cause concern for the plantings, and then I guess now we're saying the loading dock issue is a big issue as well.
Well, no, it's all assumed within here.
And I'm not sure that you
Well,
understand my
I mean,
point.
I don't think we're getting through here. Can I, if I just a minute? This is what we've proposed to this. Here, we were asked to show this, and we're just saying that there's some drains in here, and we have to get a look around the corner. It's not
I'm
that.
not arguing any of that. I think my point I'm trying to get across this evening is you've made the representation. I'm going to ask our engineering department to go out and confirm
Okay.
that you can't go back to the 35 feet, or you can't go to 35 feet because of those issues, and then I'm making my decision based upon engineering confirming that,
Okay, fine.
besides the representation this evening. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
And I will turn to Ms. Ryan next.
Can the department confirm, is that? Can the department confirm that the proposed plantings would be sufficient to address the concerns expressed by the neighbors in terms of their sight line to the lights that are on throughout the night and some of the other things that they mentioned?
Yep, and I'll ask the staff to conclude that as well. I mean, that's, I think, certainly mature plantings and other things that would address that, to Ms. Ryan's concern also on the landscaping. Further questions from the board? Mr. Brown?
Yes, I mean, listen to the speakers we had tonight. We had, you know, the fence and the buffer, the lighting, and the lighting to be dark sky compliant, which for the people that spoke, that's town code, and what that means is you won't have lights shining directly at you. The lights, if you look at the building from a distance, it'll be lit up, but the light won't be shining off the property into your yards. And we're going to make sure that that's compliant with it. We can't take any questions from the audience right now. But I think we did address the buffer. I think we did build it back up sufficiently, 25 foot there with overgrowth. I think the fence, with a proper fence and everything, I think that will help with sound also. And I think if we work on making them compliant with the dark sky, I think it will be sufficient. But I will consider what the chairman had to say in reference to waiting for engineering for an answer.
So, any further questions from the board? If not, I would ask that we reserve decision this evening. We address the issues, landscaping issues that have been asked about by myself and Ms. Ryan, the dark sky compliant, making sure we're okay there. We look at the property where you can go to 35 feet to see if the explanation you gave is sufficient from an engineering perspective, not from a business operation perspective, but engineering perspective that is needed. And then we can come back before the board. Am I missing anything?
Yeah.
Mr. Brown.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
A motion by Mr. Brown.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to reserve decision tonight based on the issues that the chairman just stated.
There's a motion by Mr. Brown to close the public hearing and reserve decision. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Robinson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are reserved. Sir, if you have a comment, please send it to the planning staff. They can give you a business card so we can consider that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 2 on the agenda, Planning Board application public hearing, Campine Bango PB 2025-017, north side of Montauk Highway, County Route 27A, approximately 100 feet west of Sylvan Avenue, Bayport 907 Montauk Highway. Applicant requests a Planning Board special permit for a restaurant in the Business 1 District pursuant to 68-272.1G. Site plan modifications are also required as part of this application. Is the applicant here this evening? They're not here, so we'll go right to the staff report. And I should note that they did make a presentation at our last planning board hearing. We'll ask that that be made a part of the record of this evening's hearing. And there was a publication notice problem is why we're back before us this evening. Ms. Wozniak. You can go just the ending of it. We'll include your staff report from the last time as well, but just give us a flavor of what we're talking about.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know we spoke about this last time, but this is just an application for the Dunkin' Donuts on Montauk sorry, that's the next application. This is just an application for a minor restaurant in a shopping center in Bayport. So based on my staff report from the last meeting, I recommend that the board grant the application subject to the attached conditions.
Thank you. Are there any questions, Ms. Wozniak? Not seeing any, is there a motion? Mr. Moriarty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion to absolutely close the public hearing at this point, which was kept open because of some publication issues. Make it clear that the record from the last public hearing is incorporated into the hearing this evening, as well as approve the application subject to the agreed-upon conditions.
Thank you. There's a motion by Mr. Moriarty to close the public hearing, make the record of the last application, the last time this application was heard as part of the record this evening, and grant the application subject to the terms and conditions. Is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. Rulon, all in favor? Opposed, abstentions, the application is granted. Item 3 on the agenda, Planning Board application, public hearing, Multi-Brands Wire LLC, PB 2025-018, northwest corner of Union Boulevard, County Route 50 and Chestnut Street, West Islip, 343 Union Boulevard. Applicant requests a modification of TC 5186 in order to increase the size of a fast food restaurant. Site plan modifications may also be requested as part of the application. This also was an application that was heard at the last meeting, but there was a publication notice. So we're back on again for this evening. I'll turn to Ms. Wozniak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is the application for the Dunkin' Donuts in West Islip in order to expand the restaurant to put in a walk-in freezer and a small roof over in the rear of the building. So based on that and my staff report from the last meeting, I recommend the board grant the application subject to the attached conditions.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Wozniak? Not seeing any. Is there a motion? Mr. Moriarty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd make a motion to close the public hearing that was kept open subsequent to our last public hearing. I'd like to incorporate all of the testimony information provided at the initial hearing this evening, as well as this evening, and then make a motion to grant the application subject to conditions.
Thank you. There's a motion by Mr. Moriarty to close the public hearing, incorporate the testimony from the previous hearing on this agenda item, as well as this evening's testimony, and grant the application subject to the covenants and restrictions. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Rulon. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, the application is granted. Next item on the agenda, Planning Board application, public hearing, GKI Long Island LLC, PB 2025-015, east side of 13th Avenue, approximately 441 feet south of Peconic Street, Ronkonkoma, 195 13th Avenue. Applicant requests 2 Planning Board special permits for a vehicle repair shop and the outside overnight parking of registered vehicles in the Industrial 1 District pursuant to 68-340.1B and C respectively. Site plan modifications are also requested as part of the application. Good evening, Mr. Guardino.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Anthony Guardino, law firm of Farrell Fritz, Hauppauge, New York, representing GKI Long Island, which is before the board tonight seeking approval to lease a portion of an existing warehouse building to Tesla for use as a Tesla collision center. This will require, as was mentioned, a special permit, actually 2 special permits, one for vehicle repair shop and one for accessory overnight parking of vehicles that are waiting to be repaired or those that have already been serviced and waiting to be picked up by their owners. So since a Tesla collision center operates very differently than a conventional vehicle repair shop, GKI is also seeking a determination from this board that the associated parking demand for this use is 1 parking stall for each 625 square feet of gross floor area, or alternatively, for a relaxation of the parking requirement that is otherwise applicable to conventional auto repair shops. I have presenting with me tonight Andrew Stolzenberg, a professional engineer with ALS Engineering, Wayne Muller, professional traffic and parking engineer with R&M Engineering, Jack Marchese, who is a program manager with Tesla, is also present in case the board has any questions, and Joseph Farkas is with us as well, and he's representing ownership. You may recall that a Tesla collision center was the subject of an application to this board that was submitted earlier this year for a site located on the southeast corner of Veterans Highway and Crossway East in the town's ICD, Industrial Corridor District. That application was presented in a way that was designed to fit within the ICD regulations, but was ultimately denied by this board, not because of the nature of the use, but because of its location in the ICD.
After recently watching the video of that hearing in preparation for tonight, it appeared to me, at least, that the board was actually supportive of the use, but not in the ICD, where vehicle repair is in fact prohibited. So a couple of things jumped out at me during the video as I was watching it. I saw at the conclusion of the applicant's presentation, Mr. Chairman, you had said something like, I think it's a good application, just in the wrong place or in the wrong area. Mr. Frugieri suggested that there are other industrial properties in the town and they should look there because they would be more suitable. And then Mr. Brown spoke at the very end of the hearing, directly to Tesla, saying, look, I really would like to see Tesla in the town. You should go find another location if you can. So Tesla obviously wants to be in the town. It sounds like the town wants Tesla to be in the town. So Tesla was determined to look around in the area. They want to be in this area, roughly in this area. So they looked for another site that was more suitable, and they located this site at 195 13th Avenue in Ronkonkoma, which is zoned Industrial 1, which allows this use, but with a special permit from this board. So you're familiar with the property. It's a little more than 8 acres in size. It's on the east side of 13th Avenue, east of Comack Street and south of Peconic Street. As I mentioned, it's zoned I-1. It has on it today a warehouse building. It's 102, a little over 102, almost 103,000 square feet. It's a warehouse building, and there's photos of the building in your booklet. All of the adjoining properties are zoned industrial, so there's no residential that's adjacent to this, so that's different than the other application that was made earlier this year. Everything around it is either industrial or office uses, and again, in Exhibit 5, you can see the photographs of the surrounding uses. The nearest residential use, I measured it, it looks like it's between 450 and 500 feet to the north and that would be on the north side of Peconic Street. This board in April of 2023 approved an application by GKI's predecessor for a parking lot expansion and special permits to allow for the outdoor overnight parking of 65 registered vehicles and 10 registered unattached box trailers that would be accessory to the warehouse use. And there were site plan modifications that were granted at that time as part of that application. My client did move forward with a site plan for the expansion, and in December of 2023, that site plan was approved, and the site plan improvements are complete. So the site, it's finished, and so now my client was looking for tenants, and Tesla expressed interest in leasing about a little more than 40,000 square feet of the existing warehouse building for its collision center. And then the balance, which is about 55,000, would be warehouse space, conventional warehouse space. The site is going to provide 111 vehicle parking spaces and then a total of 111 vehicle storage spaces. So there are actually 222 parking spaces or striped spaces on the property, but we can't count the 111 storage spaces. So for parking purposes, we have 111. As you heard back in April of 2023, the Tesla Collision Center operates differently from the typical auto repair facility. And one of those differences is that this is strictly a collision center. There will not be any mechanical repairs done on the property. And also, unlike a corner repair shop or gas station where cars are worked on sometimes outside, or even if they're inside, the doors are open and you can see all the work. Everything is going to take place, all repairs will take place within the four corners, or four walls, I should say, of the building. Nothing will be visible from the outside or audible from the outside of the building. Tesla collision centers are also inherently clean because Tesla vehicles don't have combustion engines, they don't have oil, they don't have gasoline, they don't have other petroleum products. Everything's electronic. And as a representative from Tesla said at the April 2023 meeting, these facilities actually operate more like a technology facility than an auto repair garage. So I was looking online and I spoke to Mr. Marchese. There's a photo in there at Exhibit 9 that's representative. It's from Reno, Nevada. It's not going to be this particular warehouse, but or this facility, I should say, this collision center. But you can see how clean they are. It does not look like an auto repair facility. They are really squeaky clean. It looks like a squeaky clean warehouse.
Mr. Guardino, you
yes.
do have members of the community here on this project. Do you have anything you can put up or show them or hand out?
I have the extras of the book.
Because it's a self, I mean, it
I think
explains a
there are
lot.
extras. I hope there are extras. Can I take one? Sorry.
Take mine.
If the neighbors here want, anybody wants to see that as he's speaking, yeah, thank you.
So as I mentioned, there'll be just 2 spray booths, 2 prep decks in the building. All of the vehicle service is done with an app. Like, you can't just walk in, you can't just drive in. Everything has to be scheduled, so that helps regulate traffic. So you can regulate when cars are coming in and when cars are going out. There's no after-hours drop-off of vehicles. Everything takes place when the facility is open to the public. There will be 9 Level 2 EV charging stations on the property, but they will be strictly for use of employees. They're not for the public. So there will not be people coming in to use the charging stations. Also, as a convenience to the customers who drop off their vehicles to be repaired, Tesla will have 5 rental cars on the property that they will be storing. Cars take, they said, on average about 16 days to be repaired, because again, this is collision work, body work. They have to get the new parts. And the customers will have the ability to rent a Tesla. But again, no one can walk off the street to rent a Tesla. These are just for the facility. No new or used car prep will take place on the site. No cars will be inventoried, new or used. That's not what the site's going to be used for. The facility will only be open to the public. Will be open to the public between the hours of 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. on weekdays only, no weekends. However, there will be activity, there will be repairs going on in the facility during non-public hours, and those times will depend on how busy they are. With respect to truck deliveries, I'm told there is 1 tractor-trailer delivery each day. That delivers the parts, and then occasionally you'll have like FedEx trucks that deliver, I guess, smaller parts. The facility will create a significant number of new jobs for the town. Again, depending on the volume of the business, there are likely to be 2 shifts with a maximum of about 45 to 50 employees on the shift. So there'll be a maximum of 45 to 50. Although this approval, if this application gets approved, it would supersede the special permits and the site plan modifications that were granted in April of 2023. The applicant is now proposing to make some very subtle changes to the site plan, obviously to make the Tesla facility fit here. It's basically looking just to restripe the spaces that were going to be used for trucks, tractor trailers that were being stored, and the trailers, and just reconfigured the space to be used now for the storage of Tesla vehicles and other passenger cars associated with the collision center, and also for the warehouse tenants. And also because the Tesla vehicles being stored on the site will be located in spaces that were previously designated for overnight parking of the tractor trailers, the storage of cars are going to meet all the criteria, just like the last application did. So it will be, the stored cars will be set back a minimum of 50 feet from any street, 200 feet from any residential use or zone, and they will be, of course, properly screened with fencing and/or landscaping pursuant to the direction of this board. The site plan modifications or the relaxations will be for overall landscaping and front yard landscaping. They are very, very subtle differences. They've gone down just a hair. And the applicant is also seeking the determination of the board, like I said, with respect to parking, either a finding that the 1 per 625 square feet is sufficient or appropriate for this particular use, or alternatively just to grant the relaxation of the requirement, which I think is 1 per 200 square feet, which is quite a few spaces, would be quite a few spaces. As Mr. Muller is going to testify shortly, the 111 vehicles will be more than sufficient to accommodate the parking demand for both the collision center and the warehouse tenants. and his findings and conclusions are in the report that's in your book at Exhibit 10, and he'll be talking about that shortly. And before I turn this over to the experts, I do want to point out that I worked with Ms. Wozniak earlier today on the proposed conditions of approval. Thank you, Kelly, I appreciate it. And my client consents to all of the conditions. So I think we're in good shape there, including the one that requires that the owner obtain planning board approval for future tenants for the warehouse portion of the building. I do want to point out, though, that subsequent to the completion of R&M's report, we learned that GKI, the owner, actually leased 22,000 square feet of the warehouse to a company called Mission Foods. They will have less than 10% of office space within that 22,000. Doing the calculations, right now there's 35 extra spaces for the warehouse tenants. The Mission Foods, by code, will require less than the 35. So I'm asking the board, only because they're ready to pull a building permit, that rather than have to come back for the Mission Foods application, because we actually do have enough parking now, we won't for the second tenant. But we're asking that the board hopefully approve the Mission Foods, or at least make a determination that we don't have to come back in 2 weeks for that tenant. So I have Andrew Stolzenberg and Wayne. I'm happy to answer any questions. I don't know if the board wants to hear about the site plan, or you can, if you get it from the drawings. But
No, I mean, if Wayne wants to speak on that, the only thing I would just say,
Yes.
if he's speaking, if you would look at condition number 5, because you say that charging is allowed, maybe we need to modify that to say for employees only, so it does not become a charging site for cars to pull up all night long and
That's fine.
charge there. The way it's phrased, I think,
Yeah, that's fine. That's
leaves
fine.
it unclear.
Okay. So I guess, Wayne, you want to speak? Thank you.
Good evening. For the record, Wayne Muller, R&M Engineering, offices at 50 Elm Street, Huntington, New York. As Mr. Guardino indicated, we prepared a fairly detailed parking and traffic analysis, which is noted as Exhibit number 10 in the packet. It was previously submitted to the town under separate cover, and it's dated October 9th, 2025. One of the major components that are contained in the report is that planning staff had indicated that they'd like to get a handle as to what the level of activity would be at a similar Tesla facility. So what we did was we studied a similar Tesla facility, which is located on Voice Road in the town of North Hempstead. And if the board's familiar where Voice Road is, it's like a quasi-industrial / retail area, which is located on the west side of Glen Cove Road, north of Old Country Road. And I believe the reason why it was called Voice Road is that there's a series of antennas that used to be used in World War I and World War II, and in fact, when a lot of the airports existed in the area, and I believe that's why it got the name Voice Road. So we studied that Tesla facility, which is pretty much similar to this facility, except that the building that they're in on Voice Road is larger than this building. And what we did was we counted the number of vehicles that were parked on the facility from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m., which encompassed all the hours of operation that they were there on Thursday, September 4th, 2025. As indicated on page 2 of 6 of my report, the maximum number of vehicles that we saw on the property was a total of 96. And that included employee vehicles and the vehicles that were waiting to be serviced on the lot. There's actually an aerial depiction of the Voice Road facility, which is contained as Exhibit EX-2, and you could see that that's a much larger facility with almost 200, I think it's 187 parking spaces provided on the
So just
property.
a question on that. I believe the numbers you provided, and Ms. Wozniak can correct me if I'm wrong, for this facility, which you're saying is smaller than the one you compared, you're asking for more parking for 110 spots, was it, or for 110 cars?
So,
100 cars?
as Mr.
111.
Guardino indicated, the site is kind of bifurcated, as depicted on the site plan. There's like the Tesla portion, which is located to the north, and then the balance of the building would be the other industrial tenants to the south. So on the Tesla site itself, there's 76 standard stalls and 111 storage spaces. On the balance of the property, there are 35 spots.
I guess my question is, how many cars do you think are going to be parked there? I thought the 111 represented, you're saying, is the daily amount of cars that are going to be there, including those that have to be repaired.
If we were to calculate a rate based on building area, because the activity will be scaled down, there won't be as many technicians, we would indicate 75 total.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, the way I was reading it was 111 was what you were saying going to be for the Tesla site. That makes sense now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So based on our observations, the number of parking spaces that would be provided solely for Tesla would be more than adequate, and that doesn't include the 111 storage spaces, which we did not include in our analysis. However, those vehicles that we observed on at Voice Road are included. But that's a much larger parking area. What we then did was we utilized industry standard parking generation rates to estimate the quantity of vehicles parked for the balance of the property, which would be roughly 55,000 square feet of warehouse use. As indicated on page 3 of 6, we calculated the parking demand for the balance of the building in 3 different ways. Industry standard data allows us to calculate it using an average rate for all of the studies that they performed, an 85th percentile rate, which is a pretty conservative method, and then in this instance, the Institute of Transportation Engineers provided a fitted curve equation in which they took all the data points and then they plotted an equation, and in this point, it's a linear equation. As indicated in the report, using the average rate, we would anticipate 21 vehicles parked for the balance of the building. Using the fitted equation, it would be 16. However, the 85th percentile rate came in somewhere around 62. So there's a bit of a disparity between the industry standards. However, as indicated by Mr. Guardino, and as per I believe the conditions of approval, if this project were to be approved, the applicant at this point is really only seeking to occupy 22,000 square feet of the remaining 55,000 square feet. And what that would translate to is essentially what the town zoning ordinance would require for that 22,000 square feet. In fact, it would be the 35 spots that would be provided on the southern portion of the property would exceed the code requirement for the 22,000 square feet, because the proposal before the board this evening is roughly a 2,000 square foot office, which would require 10 spots, and then 20,000 square feet of industrial, which would require 20. So the requirement for that 22,000 square feet would be 30. We're providing 35 spots. And the applicant is fully aware that in order to occupy the balance of that remaining warehouse space, they would have to come before the board and prove that they could provide more spots so that it would work in such a fashion. So as indicated in my report, we believe that the parking provided on the property would be sufficient for the full occupation of the warehouse use. However, the applicant has indicated that they're willing to accept the conditions that the town is offering before the board tonight. So in a nutshell, we believe that this site will function properly. There'll be more than adequate parking provided on the property. And if you have any further questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
So 16 parking spots for your employees at the facility is what you're saying? Is that what I heard?
Well, I think what I was saying was that industry standard parking
Forget the
generation.
industry standard. From what you've learned from your other property you have in North Hempstead that you studied, how many employees based on the size and how many cars you can fix at a time? How many?
That's a different, so that's a different animal. For Tesla?
Yes, for Tesla.
For Tesla, we believe 75 spots total.
Okay, what
Would be
percentage of that are cars, I guess I'm trying to break down, what percentage of that are cars going to be parked there waiting on repair versus employees coming in and out, is what's the breakdown I'm trying to get at the 75?
Based on what we saw at Voice Road, it's about 50% is cars waiting.
Sorry, so
So it's about, say roughly
37 and a half cars are there for
Correct. Yeah,
waiting on repair, and 37 and a half people are cars are for employees?
Employees, correct.
Okay, that's
In-
what I was,
roughly.
that's what I was trying to get
So 40,
understanding of.
35 in that area.
Give or take.
Yeah.
I'll let you go up or down on that half.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, or?
Are there any other questions now, Mr.?
We have speakers.
All right, so we'll go to the speakers, the staff report, and then we'll come back for questions. Mr. Guardino, anything else you wanted to present?
Not that I want to present, but I just want to not forget, because Tesla has been seeking to be here about a year, and because there's the changes in this proposed site plan and the approved site plan are so de minimis, we are respectfully requesting a waiver of a full site plan and having to go back, because that will take months and months, and that's just not in the cards for Tesla. So I just want to make sure I make that request. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go to public comment.
Edward Byrne?
Good evening. My name is Edward Byrne. I'm here with my wife Ann. We live on Jones Street, which is 2 blocks away from the facility. We've been there for 53 years, and this is the first time we've seen a need to come before the board to address any issues. We are, at least I am, happier that it's Tesla rather than some diesel trucking company repair. I would like to know if Tesla leaves, will somebody else be able to come in because it's been rezoned and put in a different type of a repair facility, or is this going to be strictly for the Tesla company?
I'll ask Ms. Wozniak to speak to that, but I think it's restricted to EV only, electric vehicle only, so it would not be a general auto body repair shop in there, but Ms. Wozniak will speak to that during her report.
Okay. By the way, is Councilman Lorenzo here?
No.
No? Because I sent him, my wife and I did an email on the 25th of October with some of our comments with regards to that. And so he should have that in his record someplace. So some of the comments that we made to him and the comments that I have on my list here are no longer pertinent because it's a Tesla facility. So some of the comments we still have to do with traffic on 13th Avenue. It's a major entrance and exit to our residential area. There's a fire substation right on the corner of Peconic Street and 13th Avenue, which needs access through 13th Avenue. So if there's a traffic buildup there, that could be an impact on the efficiency of the fire department. You have a new vacant monstrosity on the southeast corner of Veterans Highway and 13th Avenue that has many truck bays in there. That's going to substantially impact the traffic in the area, especially getting in and out of 13th Avenue. We're thankful that it's still vacant, but we're kind of upset that it's there. That's the third one on Veterans Highway. So we have some concerns about turning Ronkonkoma into Queens. It doesn't look good for the neighborhood, it doesn't look good for the town, and it doesn't look good for Ronkonkoma. Battery storage. I don't know what Tesla is going to do with regards to their facility and a large number of battery storage. We're aware of the fact that batteries can go on fire, and I think we should have some input from the fire department, being that it's two companies away, that how they would handle and what facilities would be on site by Tesla for any accidents with the batteries. Is that my time is up?
Yes.
Can I continue for a couple more comments?
A couple comments, go right ahead.
On 13th Avenue, you have a company called Store Tractor. They're kind of a okay company, but they use the road all the time for running their business. They are always parked on the side of the street, but they go out into the traffic lanes with their tractor trailers, loading and unloading facilities, and I think that that is an impediment to the area. Across the street from them, on 13th Avenue, is another company that has trucking, and they're in there at 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, either banging tailgates or banging the linkage between the tractors and the trailers, and it wakes up the neighborhood at those hours, and, then you awake and can't get back to sleep. So we're 2 blocks away, and we hear it, and it wakes us up. The people on Peconic Street, it's got to be twice as loud for them. They have a buffer distance, that same company, or that same building has a buffer distance, I think 40 to 50 feet off of Peconic Street, and it's not maintained. It's all garbage all the time. They use the parking lot. They have people, I don't know if they're living in the parking lot, so they may be the ones who are throwing the garbage in there, I don't know. And the other concern we have is on Fifth Avenue in Ronkonkoma. The town doesn't do a good job of having those facilities maintain their properties in an orderly fashion, and it looks like a dump at sometimes. So these are things that degrade the area. These are things that
Mr. Berna, on that, I'm going to ask you to please provide that in writing to the planning board, and we can have somebody look at that, since it's not this
I'm sorry,
specific.
I have
I'm going to ask you to
hearings on-
provide those properties to us in writing where you have concerns, so we can ask someone from the town to address those, because
Okay.
they're different from, the applicant before us tonight has no control over those, but there are certainly concerns that we want to hear from you and
Yeah.
provide to the right people that can look
Well,
into it.
I'm bringing them up because they're just an overall thing of,
No,
the
I hear you. I'm just-
degradation of the area, and not to mean anything against Tesla
No,
or whatever, but
we-
even the parking lot. This is the 3rd time I understand that parking lot came to the board. The first time it was turned down. The second time, they did redo the parking lot and everything, and they did a lot of site planting and everything on 13th Avenue. But then nobody maintained it until this other sign went up, and they had another prospective tenant come in. So, the town needs to do a better job, I think, of having the industrial areas properly maintained by the
Like,
owners of the
we
properties.
appreciate your comments, and please definitely submit the other properties to us in writing, and we can look into those.
Okay, thank you very much for giving me the extra time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Karen Hansen?
Good evening. I also live on Jones Street. I live on Jones Street. I've been there for 52 years. We get along fine with the industrial park, but I do have concerns about this Tesla thing. What happens when Tesla leaves, or if they leave? The other concern that I have, my neighbor, Eddie, he addressed most of my concerns. We've talked about this the last few days. What about this Mission Food thing, like this subdivision? What is their relationship going to be with Tesla? My other concern is this rezoning has been up a few times and knocked down. It was originally zoned for apartment buildings way back in 1972, and it was fought by the Civic, and that's why we have the industrial park. Why do we have to rezone it now for this, and what impact will that have on other tenants or other things that can come in if this area is rezoned?
Thank you. It's not up for rezone. It's going to keep the current zone. It's just a permit. It's just a permit within the zone. It's not up for rezoning tonight. It's going to be as
Well,
the current
right,
use.
Yeah, but the rezoning is the concern, and if the permit is approved and it is rezoned, what impact will it have in the rest of it, that industrial park?
They're not, my point is, they're not asking for a rezoning. It's going to be used as its current zone.
Just the
It's not a
current
change
zone.
of zone, right?
You're not changing the zone.
Correct.
I really don't have much to say. My neighbor kind of said it all, but thank you for your time.
Thank you. Those are the only 2 cards I have. Anyone else wish to be heard? Not seeing anyone, I'm going to ask Ms. Wozniak for a staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The property is located on the east side of 13th Avenue, approximately 441 feet south of Peconic Street in Ronkonkoma, and it's improved with the 103,000 square foot industrial building originally built in the 70s. Tonight, the applicant's looking to convert approximately 47,000 square feet of the building into a Tesla auto body shop. The auto body shop is proposed as a collision center only, with no general service repair, and will accommodate the overnight parking of 111 vehicles. And this is in addition to the 75 that the report noted. So in total, the request is for 187 parking stalls for the Tesla facility. The property itself recently received the site plan approval in December of 2023 in order to expand the parking area for overnight parking of delivery vans and tractor trailers. Those site improvements were completed. However, the stalls are now proposed to be restriped to accommodate passenger cars instead. Overall, the site plan will remain similar to the recently approved plan with the exception of restriping, installation of our overhead door, and some other minor changes. The property is surrounded by industrial development and is located just north of a major highway, Veterans Memorial Highway. While the location is not of concern, there are some concerns with parking, as the application does require a 69% parking relaxation. In order to address these concerns, the applicant provided a parking study that outlined the anticipated parking needed for a Tesla facility of this size. They looked at a Tesla center of similar size in a more urbanized area. So based on the study, the applicant anticipates the need for 187 stalls for the Tesla use and anticipates 21 stalls needed for the vacant industrial unit, for a total of 208 stalls where 222 are provided. Based on the information provided in the study, planning has no concern with the sufficiency of the parking for the Tesla Center, but there are concerns about the anticipated parking for the warehouse use. Currently, there's no user, and with the new proposed site plan, there are only 35 parking stalls dedicated to that warehouse use, where typically a 55,000 square foot warehouse would need 89 parking stalls. So without a user, it is difficult to determine if this is going to be adequate. So planning recommends that any change in tenant for the warehouse must obtain planning board approval for parking adequacy. Based on this, planning recommends the board grant the application subject to the attached conditions, which require additional plantings along 13th Avenue to further screen the overnight storage and require the warehouse use to come in for a parking determination when it becomes occupied. The conditions do not recommend waiver of site plan approval. That was not requested by the applicant, so that was not discussed with the engineering division if they feel like that is something that can be accomplished with just site inspection. So I can't make a recommendation on waiving it tonight.
Okay. So I'll get back to that in a second. I think if we can come to agreement tonight, we can do that subject to the town engineer approving site plan. If he does not, then we have to go through a full site plan review, but it'd be subject to the town engineer's comments on that. I don't think Ms. Wozniak knew today to make that request.
That's fine.
But where I'm a little confused, and maybe I just misheard this, I was joking around with 37 and a half cars for the employees and 37 and a half cars that were going to be there for repair. What are the extra 111 for? Is that for the Tesla facility, or is that for the overall site? Because she mentioned 186 now.
Well, I know, Wayne, you want to, I hear you. I think we're just looking at it differently. There are 111 stored spaces, which really we did not put into the calculation because the code says you can't, right? So we're not even counting those as parking spaces. There are just coincidentally 111 that are the other spaces. The number is just the same, but I'll let Wayne.
Sure, if you could refer to the site plan, it'd probably be the best way to do it. So you can see on the area that's designated for Tesla, which is essentially the north side of the property, there are 75, which we're calling, Exhibit 8, sorry. So on the northern portion of the site, there's a key down a legend which shows standard parking spaces with a circle around the number, and then the other thing is outdoor storage spaces. So there are 75 standard parking spaces in the Tesla portion, plus 111 storage spaces.
What is being stored in the 111 spaces?
It's going to be the cars under repair.
I thought the 37 and a half were the cars that were being repaired.
No, I understand. No, so a car goes in, they're in the shop, it needs a quarter panel or whatever it is, they're going to move it outside and store it in that 111.
But no more than 37 and a half are going to be stored in that 111? You're going to have 111 cars waiting plus 37 and a half new ones coming in? I'm just not, the representation earlier to me was
it is significantly overparked.
I understand, so I'm just trying to get an understanding from what was represented to me a little while ago.
So at the Voice Road facility, maximum, we saw a total number of 96 vehicles.
Not employee vehicles, just vehicles waiting on repair?
Vehicles. No, I have it broken down. Hold on one second.
I mean, I think you have parking there. I'm just not clear that the representation that was made before, either I'm understanding or it was,
No, I think part of the confusion is, and I think Wayne will explain it, is that when they studied Boyce Road, they studied all the spaces, the storage spaces and the I'm gonna call parking spaces,
Okay, so-
cars that go in and out. Here, we couldn't look at it exactly like that because we're not allowed to count, per code, we're not allowed to count the stored spaces as part of parking.
I'm not asking how you, I'm just trying to figure out how many spots will be utilized by Tesla. The 37 and a half, I thought, were the cars that were coming in and waiting there for up to 16 days to be repaired. But you're saying that the 37 and a half that are coming in daily for repair are different than the 110 that are going to be sitting there waiting on repair? I'm just trying to figure out what,
Spaces, not cars.
So what we saw out at Boyce Road was a total of 96 vehicles. There were 31 non-Tesla vehicles. So we assume those were for employees. And then the other 65 were Tesla vehicles that were being stored in some form or fashion for repair. So since we couldn't count the outside storage, we kind of lumped it all together and said, well, they'll fit in the 75 spots that we used to calculate the parking because there is really no specific parking requirement for Tesla. So essentially, the 65 cars will go into that area, that there's 111 storage spaces, and then the 31 or 32 or 33, well, actually, it maxed at 35, but not at the same time in the morning, would be in the 75 stalls. So there would be surplus spaces on the Tesla portion, no matter how we cut it up. Plenty of parking for Tesla.
yeah, I'm still not. So how many cars are on site on any given day is your estimation for repair purposes? That's all I'm trying to get an answer
So
on.
for
Regardless
repairs,
of where they're parked, how you count the
maximum
parking
would be
stalls.
65.
65.
That's
Plus
what we
another,
saw.
plus another 37 you're estimating, give or take, for employees.
Correct.
So there's not a daily need for 111 plus 75, there's a daily need for approximately 111 spots.
120, say round it up a little bit.
Okay, does that make any sense to you, Ms. Wozniak?
So
It does, I just don't understand the request for 111 storage spaces if they are not needed, especially when the other, I guess, warehouse use needs parking, so I don't understand why so many spaces.
Well, I think the reality is that the way the Tesla facility will operate is that, as you can see from the plan, there are rolling gates which segregate Tesla from the other tenant, the 55,000 square foot of industrial. It's very unlikely that someone would park over there and, walk through Tesla on the other side of the building because it's all gated. They segregated it out because these cars range from, I think, $50,000 to $120,000, and they'll be in certain parts of disrepair, and they want them to be secure in the lots. So there's no sharing of the parking.
Yeah, I guess the point maybe is if there's not a need for that many storage spaces, and we're going to have a parking issue with other tenants on the property, is there a reason why those spots would not be given up to the other tenant? I know they have to walk, but if they need to walk to make something work, in other words, do you feel like you're really going to need 111 spots to store cars? That's what I'm just not understanding.
Jack, you want to pull it?
You know, if you're basing it on your other property, which is larger, and you never get that high of a number, why are we at a much higher number of spots you're asking for?
How are you? Good evening. Jack Marchese, Program Manager representing Tesla. As far as the parking goes, realistically, the need would be around 130 parking spots based off of our work in progress. So typically, we have four bays per team, so there's going to be 20 bays in here, and we allocate about 3.5 cars per bay. So based off of those calculations, we are looking at about 80 vehicles or so on site that are in progress, and then plus the 37.5 employees and any vehicles that are waiting for parts that have to go outside as well. Based off of that, I believe that would bring us to about 130 or so spots, and if you take away the employees there, that brings us down to about 80 spots needed for vehicles in repair and about 40 for employees.
I just wanted, Ms. Wozniak, would there be something you'd want to modify downward? And is the applicant okay with that?
Well, just based on, I guess, the testimony, I mean, we don't typically, grant, I guess, extra storage space that's not needed, and especially in a site that has landscaping relaxations. Why, I know the parking's already built because it was built before there's a tenant there, but, in addition to that, we granted them parking relaxations when we could have had landscaping, and especially if they're not gonna be used, I guess it's just a little.
So there is intent to use them, and we always like to build a little bit extra just in case there's an influx of work. Like during the winter, if there's a major snowstorm, we definitely see an increase in volume of work and repairs at the site. Over the summer, if there's a hurricane or a hailstorm or anything that happens in the market as well. So there are times where our demand is a little bit higher than traditional just because of based off of natural disasters or weather or any of those cases. So we like to at least provide just a little bit of extra just in case we do have any increases in production need.
It's a significant percentage. I mean, you're going from 130 up to 186, right?
I mean, we could reduce the parking if that's what the board is requesting.
I mean, you're always welcome to come back to us, but to Ms. Wozniak's point, we're giving you a relaxation on landscaping and other things. There's a parking deficit, and you're doing this for the purpose of it maybe, and it seems like a high percentage.
So with that, we will still provide landscaping, privacy fencing around all of our secured parking. So we will make sure the landscaping and privacy screening all is within code and with the board's recommendation outside of the need for the parking as well. I think we can accommodate both of those requests, keeping the parking and also providing the security and landscaping.
Yeah. Ms. Wozniak, what is the relaxation they're asking for?
As far as parking
Parking
for
limits.
our town standards, it's 69% parking relaxation. Because typically, like Mr. Guardino said, vehicle repairs need 1 per 200, and I guess Teslas operate a little bit differently, so it seems a little unrealistic for that, but I just don't understand why, I mean, I understand, I guess Tesla does not want to share their portion of the parking. The parking lot already exists, and you can fit 186 stalls. That's, from what I understand, that's kind of what I'm getting, but I guess it's just, are you guys willing to allow the warehouse?
So the other portion of
use
that,
it
there
if they
are
need it?
16 stalls on the plan that are outside of the secured fencing. So that would be separate from the calculation, and those 16 stalls are for customers that are showing up to the site. Those are also ADA stalls. So the calculation may be slightly off there due to those 16 stalls as well outside of the secured fencing.
I'm going to give Ms. Okay,
Chairman,
Mr. Guardino.
I was going to say, I was just chatting with the representative of ownership. If it helps, the applicant would be willing to land bank that row that's to the furthest, I guess, to the south, or north, I'm sorry, to the north. And then we'll just see what happens with the storage spaces as to whether or not they're needed. Does that work? I mean, that would create a,
I mean, Ms. Wozniak, do we need to land bank them, or is the question whether or not the other,
Yeah, they're already constructed. So we might use-
I'm sorry?
they're already constructed?
Well, we put landscaping back if we had to. I mean, if need be, it seems to like reverse land banking or.
My only concern with land banking them, I mean, it certainly is that if you get another tenant there, you may need those spots, you're going to land bank them. I guess the question from Ms. Wozniak is whether or not one of the other tenants on that facility will be allowed to use those parking spots that are in the Tesla portion.
Yeah, I think part of the problem, I think Mr. Mueller was alluding to it, is that just the way the parking lot's broken up, that even if they're available on one side, they're probably not going to be used by the tenant on the other side, because it's the opposite
My
side.
suggestion is to help the landlord, not to,
Is what?
is to help the landlord if they have those spots available, if the person wants to walk. You could certainly, as the landlord, use that. The question really is there an issue from Tesla if those spots were to be used by another tenant that would go into the other warehouse? That's the only
They're
question, I think.
fenced in, that's the thing, but for security purposes, right, that area is fenced.
So it's fenced, so the answer
It's
is no.
fenced in,
So
and
they're
that's what makes
strictly
it
for,
difficult
so
to-
that's why
yeah.
they would either need to be land banked
Yeah,
or left the
it's
way
kind
they
of
are.
like, kind of stuck with the geometry
Got
of the site.
Okay.
But if it helps, we can land bank those.
They're already built, so I didn't understand the purpose of that. Okay, but at least I have a better understanding of it now. I couldn't understand why the numbers were so high based upon your North Hempstead
understood.
facility, which didn't make any sense to me as you were explaining it. I guess, do you want to have an extra 30 or 40 or 50 spots? Because during winter seasons and other peak seasons, there may be an issue, and you want to be able to have spots available to them.
Well, it looks like about 30, right? The
Well, it's
difference would be
130 up to
30.
186, so
Yeah.
56 spots
I
is
hear
what
you.
you're saying.
No, I understand.
Okay, I'll defer to Ms. Wozniak's thoughts on that, but I'll come back to her, and I know Mr. Brown has some questions, and some other board members may have questions.
Mr. Guarino, just, I see the portion that Tesla's taken over is not huge, so, and I see the number of cars. And my question is, there'd be no significant battery storage whatsoever?
No,
on
no.
the
So
property?
I actually checked after I heard the neighbor mention that. So I checked with Jack from Tesla, and no batteries are stored on the site.
Right,
And no
the
batteries are
vehicles
generally
have
installed
batteries
on
in
the
them,
site.
it's just
Yeah,
the cars that are there.
they refer them out to a service center for battery replacement. And
Right.
if for some reason a battery had to be put in, he explained to me, the battery comes in, it goes right in the car goes out. There's no storage at all.
Is that one of the conditions, Ms. Wozniak? 'Cause I know Ms. Ryan raised that also earlier today, and I know Mr. Brown's now raising it. Do we have a condition on that?
There is no condition, but I can add one.
So you're
And that's
okay with
fine.
adding one on that?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, there will be no battery
So to
storage.
Ms. Ryan, she had a quick question on the same topic, then back to you, Mr. Brown.
Yeah, so just to follow up, just so that we're clear on this, because one of the neighbors did mention this as a potential issue, and it's been a big issue, I'm sure you're aware, on Long Island, the whole issue of battery
Yes,
storage.
yes.
So I understand there's no place in the facility for actual storage, quote unquote. I guess my question is, would there be battery replacement and handling on site, or you're saying even that would take place off-site?
That would take place off-site.
Okay.
However, just to qualify, I just want to be transparent here. My understanding is that if a car comes in and is in an accident and there's damage to the battery, so now that they're in working on the quarter panel, they would bring the battery in, put it in, and go, and the car would go out. But, so they won't do like the body work here and then send the car and then get the car back, finish the body work. They will do it all in one place in the event that the battery is damaged from the accident. But generally speaking, no batteries will be installed here. Okay. I hope that answers the question. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from the board? I see a maybe from Mr. Rulon.
My problem, it's really not with Tesla, it's the other tenant that you mentioned, Majestic Foods. They're going to have to come back here, and I don't know what spots are going to be left for them, and whether there's trucks and all that stuff for them, and just the way the thing is laid out. I just have some issues with that. I mean, in a way, it has to do with Tesla because of the parking you want. And the other way, it's like, I'm looking where, I guess they're Unit 1 and you're Unit 2 on this?
Yes.
Where's the parking for Unit 1 where Unit 1 is? I don't see it.
It's just on that same side of the building, that south side of the building is
Just
where
those things in the back, in the small area?
Well, no, right along the building, I think there are a total of 35 spaces that would be
Yeah.
available along
Yeah,
the
back.
road there. Yeah, and I agree with you. I mean, that's why we're fine with the condition. We know that Mission Foods, it works.
Oh, Mission
Because we
Foods,
have,
I'm
for
sorry.
Mission Foods, it's 22,000, 10% office. It needs roughly 30 parking spaces. We have 35. So that one works, and we're hoping that we don't have to come back for that. But you're right, after that, we have to come back and demonstrate to the board that there's enough parking for any other tenant.
Yeah, just the type of business they may
Absolutely.
be, you're going to have bigger trucks and things of that sort.
Absolutely.
So that,
Well, it's going to be limited, though, because remember, there's no truck storage on the site now. We're giving that up. So
Yeah.
this truck storage special permit that we had and the trailer storage is gone.
Okay.
We would have to come back and ask for that if that were the case, but, I'm not sure we could fit it, but, but in any event, it comes back to this board. We can't do anything without coming back to
Yeah.
this board.
Okay.
For your blessing.
Thanks. Further questions from the board? Ms. Groot?
On your Exhibit 4, that last picture of the building, are those parking spots back there? Is that the back of the building? Are those considered? I don't see them in the, it's got
Trying to-
parking stripes on
Trying to get
there.
myself oriented here.
It's the last picture on.
Yeah, no, I see it. I mean, I see parking there, and this is an actual photograph, so if parking is shown here. Do you know what this is? Or is this the side?
That's a long
And
that
is
the
that
side?
for the
Oh, that's,
second?
that's the side,
The north, the south side.
the south side.
Oh, okay.
Okay, it's not in the back, yes.
It's not the back.
Yeah, I
Oh,
saw the same
okay.
thing, but you're right. It's the, I mean, Wayne's right, it's the south. It's looking east, this photograph.
It's those. That looks like the back of the building.
So that's over
Okay.
here. Okay.
Okay, any further questions from the board? Is there something you wanted to add? I saw you step up.
No.
Ms. Wozniak, do you have anything you want to change on the parking, or leave it the way it is? We- If you want to phrase it differently, and they can always come back if you want, they want to do that, so I'm okay with that. I'm not sure if the rest of the board is.
I'm good, it's there.
I mean, it's there already, so they're not going to allow it to be used, they're not going to allow it to be used by the other tenants, so I'm okay. If you have a strong opinion, let us hear it. If not, I'm okay either way on it.
We would
Yeah,
prefer
it's already
not
in
to come back.
existence. We'll leave- Okay. So we're okay then? All right, so is there a motion?
Mr.
Well,
Chairman.
Ms. Guardino, anything else you want to add?
I want to get out
Mr.
of here.
Chairman, before they add anything more, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make a motion to close the public hearing and grant the application, subject to either the commissioner or the town engineer doing a waiver of the site plan, subject to the conditions which being executed by the client, and subject to condition number 5, with the planning board special permit would have to be changed where the charging stations would be employees only.
Fine. That's acceptable. Thank you.
So there's a motion by Mr. Brown to close the public hearing, grant the application subject to two things. One is that for waiver of site plan, that it has to be agreed to by either the commissioner or the town engineer. If not, you have to come back before us, or you have to get the full site plan. Or number 2 is changing special condition number 5, which will now read to restrict charging to employees' vehicles only.
Oh, excuse me,
And Mr. Wu.
I'd like to also add something regarding the battery storage, no battery storage.
If that's not in there, I would agree on that. So, Mr. Brown, would you accept a friendly amendment to your
I
motion?
would accept the friendly amendment and add that there be no significant battery storage on site.
Yeah, that's fine. The battery storage, yeah. No
Perfect.
battery storage.
So adding the no significant battery storage on site. Is there a second to that motion?
I would second.
Second by Ms. Moriarty. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Thank
Your
you so
application is
much.
granted. Thank
All
you.
right, thanks so much. Appreciate it. It's good to see you all.
Item 5 on the agenda, Planning Board application, public hearing, Ronan McAdam, PB 2025-021, southeast corner of Carlton Avenue, County Route 17 and Beecher Avenue, East Islip, 259 Carlton Avenue. Applicant requests a modification of TC 4442 in order to expand the activity space in an existing bar. Site plan modifications may be requested as part of the application. Good evening.
Good evening, members of the board. Thank you very much for hearing us this evening. My name is David Bush, B-U-S-C-H, registered architect at 90 West Main Street in Bay Shore. I'm here on behalf of the proprietors, Ronan, Ray, and Chris. There was a site plan package, a package of drawings that was submitted that included a key plan, an existing floor plan of the prior tenancy Shortstop Inn, the current tenancy of Cork and Bull, and then a parking assessment as the final sheet, and I'll run through those. The existing property is a multi-tenant building. It's located at 255, 259 Carlton Avenue. At this time, the application, at the time of the application submission, if you will, the building was occupied 2 tenants, a personal service provider, and the Cork and Bull Tavern. The application tonight is for Cork and Bull to seek a modification of existing CNRs issued to the prior similar use tenant of the Shortstop Inn. In the call tonight, it states that in order to expand the activity space in the existing bar, and I'd just like to be clear about that is accurate in the sense that this is the existing footprint of the original Shortstop Inn. We are not expanding the tenancy, it's the same square footage. We're just modifying the interior space of a prior approved use there. So if we look at the drawings that were submitted, drawing SP1 is a key plan, and it shows you that the space is at the southeast corner. The tenant building is at the southeast corner of the intersection of Carlton Avenue and Beecher. The second drawing is the prior tenant plan. It's the shortstop inn. It shows the existing plan with the prior assembly space and then the approved occupancies per Town of Islip prior approvals from, and including plans stamped and dated June 7th, 2001, and the occupancies that are shown there as confirmed with Town of Islip more recently during the month of August. The drawing SP 1.3, which is the third sheet in the set, shows the proposed current occupancy. And really, if we take a look between the two plans, we see the bar length is the same. There was prior dart and billiards gaming, so it's really the same programming. It is shifted around. The dart programming is expanded, so we've eliminated some of the prior storage space that was inside the same envelope. The final plan, which is really, I think, what the discussion is about, is the parking. If we look at the final plan, or the final sheet in the set, SP 1.3, I'm sorry, SP 1.4, we offer 3 matrix of comparison. So the first matrix on top, that was for the prior tenancy, the shortstop inn, which was an approved use, and the personal service tattoo parlor that was inside there. So we look at that right in the first matrix, we see tenant 1, the tavern. The stated occupancy there, 53 persons, and the 28.7 parking spaces is per the prior town approval, TC number 442, and the approved plans dated June 7th, 2001, as I'd referred to. The personal service space had an occupancy of a parking requirement of 1 space for 150 square feet, and based on that total square footage, there's approximately 15 spaces required there. So, in short, the prior tavern required a total of, round numbers, 29 spaces per prior approvals that were there. If we look at the middle matrix, what that looks at is the prior use, the shortstop inn, on the current code assessment, similar to the way we're going to assess the Cork and Bull. When we look at that square footage of GFA, and we include the standing space within that, we actually end up at a very similar parking requirement. We end up at the 22.5 spaces and the 7 spaces, 29.5 spaces. So the prior TC approval and approved plans reflected a requirement of 29 spaces on the space. The current code requires a total of, round numbers, 30 spaces. So a differential on the shortstop inn of really 1 space on code adjustment. The tenancy of the personal, the other tenancy still has the same requirement of 1 space for 150 square feet. I do want to point out that when this matrix was put together, as I referred to, and the second tenant in the building was Tattoo Maven, which was a personal service. There has been a new applicant, which has taken occupancy inside that space. That is the Islip Mini Mart. That Mini Mart has a mercantile use. When we look at that mercantile use, it has the same parking requirement per square foot. So personal service has a parking space requirement of 1 space for 150 square feet. The mercantile use has the same exact 1 space per 150 square feet. So when we look at these parking assessments, understanding that the tenancy has changed in the space next door, there's no change in that tenant requirement. The final little matrix just again evaluates the current Cork and Bull, the total square footage, the parking spaces per requirement per the assembly use, the parking space requirement for the standing, and then similarly the tenant space. And again, we see a round number of we see approximately 29.7 spaces, 29.5 spaces for the Cork and Bowl, very similar to the historic nature of the Shortstop Inn, as per the prior approvals, the current code assessment, et cetera. So I jumped through that rather quickly, but in short and sweet, we're here tonight to discuss the parking and the perspective of some of, the members of the public, as well as any comments from the board. I am aware that there's been 3 emails sent most recently in favor of the proposed application. One of them is from Ms. Lily Lanigan, who's a member of the Islip Chamber of Commerce. The other 2 are both local East Islip business occupancies. Again, all 3 of them have submitted written documentation to the town in support of the application. Here tonight to address any questions that anybody has, so thank you.
We do have some public comment and then staff report and questions, but currently, if you drive by there, I live not far from there, and you come down Beecher Avenue on evening hours, the cars are parked up and down Beecher Avenue on the grass diagonally, and the parking lot is overfull with people parked in more than just the marked stalls in there. Why would we consider, and also I guess the use in the adjoining business, I'm not sure there's an approved use, what they've switched to, is another issue that we have, but if there currently is insufficient parking and that parking spills out into those streets, why would we consider allowing you to change storage space to space for more people to come in, public to come in and utilize the facility and therefore create more of a need of parking? That's the part I just don't understand in the application itself. You can answer that now, or I can go to staff report and comment. You can come back and answer whichever you'd prefer.
Yeah, certainly. I think, I'd love to hear the staff report and any other comments and address all of the currents. I appreciate the question.
Sure.
Yeah.
So why don't we go to public comment first?
Yes, John Lennon?
Hello. My name is John Lennon. I'm a resident of East Islip for over 35 years. I'm also a business owner. I own Lennon Flags and Flagpoles. We install flagpoles. But most people would know me in East Islip as the guy who donates all the flags that run down from St. Mary's all the way down to the library. Each year we partner with the school. They get all the kids out, and before Memorial Day, we put all the American flags up, and that's a donation for my business. I'm also part of the Chamber of Commerce. I'm post member of the Kiwanis Club, and I'm heavily involved in the EJ Autism Foundation and other charities. And I only tell you that just to let you know how much I really care about our community and how I value businesses that we elevate. So cut to the Cork and Bull, which prior to that was a dive bar that was fairly dilapidated and a place that I would say most people wouldn't want to step into, unclean. Then when the Cork and Bull opened about a year ago, I went in there to see what it was all about, and I walked into a beautiful location, totally different atmosphere than what it was before. Cork boards on one side, easy walking space, and a bar on the other side where you saw these giant TVs that were just stunning. And when you sit there, you even feel comfortable. And I asked the owner at one point, why are these chairs so comfortable? And he said, well, it's not the chair. We raised the footstool 1.5 inches higher than most bars because it's more comfortable. And I thought to myself, well, this is an ownership that really cares about elevating the experience for the clientele that come in there. Now, I've been in there with friends where we've watched sporting events. It's a great social place to get together. But I've also noticed other people in the bar from other areas. So the bar is also drawing some other people into our area. I was absolutely blown away with how clean it was. And if you drive up Carlton Avenue in the morning, which I do, you see cleaning crews every single morning there cleaning the bar. Now, I don't know if that's normal practice. I've never owned a bar, but that's why it's so clean, because they really care about making sure that it's not the old reputation and that they've elevated it to a new reputation in the area. I only say this to you because I care about businesses, And when there's a business in our town that doesn't fit the community and doesn't help to represent the community the right way, I would be the first one down here speaking against it. I'm not here to speak against the Cork and Bull today. I'm here to tell you that it's a much nicer location to go to, and it's a great social gathering for friends and family and outsiders to come to. But that's not the whole story. If you talk to the bar owner, when I first went in there, he said, we want to make this a premier location for competitive darts. Am I at 3 minutes already? Oh, all right. I'll wrap it up real quick. So just real quick, the bar has brought in people from all over, and there's no food in this bar. So when you talk to people, they've gone to other restaurants in the area. They've experienced Jackson Hall and the wonderful food that they have there. They're experiencing our community, and it's really great to be able to see other people who are coming in here who are professionals sometimes. And I just want to say that I put my support behind this local bar as an improvement to the area. I'm not so sure about the parking. I've always been able to get a fairly decent spot there, but I understand how that could be a concern. But thank you for hearing me today.
Thank you. That's the only card I have. Did anybody else come in and wish to be heard on the application? Not seeing anyone, I'm going to go to Ms. Wozniak for a staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The property is located on the southeast corner of Carlton Avenue and Beecher Avenue in East Islip, and it's improved with a 4,500 square foot multi-tenant commercial building. In May of 2024, the bar tenant space received a stop work order for construction without a permit. Tonight, the applicant is looking to legalize those alterations, which converted storage space into a dart throwing area, effectively increasing the size of the customer service space. The bar was originally CO'd in 1965 and then received approval in 1999 to expand the bar in order to create a billiard table room. The remainder of the building is occupied by two other tenants, one which is vacant, and then the other one is in the process of obtaining a building permit for a retail establishment called Islip Mini Mart. The property itself was developed prior to many of today's development standards and is therefore quite deficient in parking and landscaping. In addition, the property is located near a residential community, of which some homes can look directly at the bar. Planning did receive some concerns from neighbors who stated that bar patrons park along Beecher Avenue, ruining their lawns and making it difficult for them to get out of their driveways. Another property owner noted that bar patrons park in their parking lot without permission and have continued to do so even when asked not to. Unfortunately, because of the site conditions, there's no room to provide additional parking, and because of the site location, there's no nearby parking areas to offer shared parking. Our engineering division did provide some comments in order to correct some of the existing issues, and planning requested that possibly employees can park remotely somewhere. So based on this, planning would just recommend the board reserve decision in order to determine which site improvements could be completed and if there are any parking mitigation measures that can be taken to alleviate the parking for the homeowners along Beecher Avenue.
Thank you. So if you want to go back to my first question, then I'll have a couple of follow-ups, and maybe the board has some
Sure.
questions.
I think the reality of the storage room that was drawn on plan and the prior shortstop in and sort of attested to in terms of what the prior space was like, the proprietors did not necessarily use that as storage. That space was used for part of the bar space. What the current proprietors of Cork and Bull have done is they've kind of, agreed the wrong process. They went in and made renovations prior to coming to the board and asking for proper permission and permits, but they just kind of cleaned up the space, opened up what was being used as an isolated room to the rest of the bar, introduced more dartboards. So the prior space that had 2 lanes of dartboards, 2 pool tables, and some storage space. This one has 1 pool table, 5 lanes of dart space. So that 5 lanes of dart space and 1 pool table really is what eats up where that storage area was on the prior plan. And then the bar has remained the same size with some similar table seating. So although I think the fact is that although it was previously denoted as a storage space, in my opinion, it was not used as a storage space. It was a fully occupied bar.
And do you represent just the bar or the landlord this evening?
I represent the bar, Cork and Bowl.
Because, I mean, the other problem with the shopping center itself is you have another use in there that, from pictures that are seen online, probably violate the town code. But they don't have approval for it, and their operation, I think, runs, according to the Google, until 3 a.m., which would be a competing need for parking spaces in that shopping center.
Okay.
And based on the paraphernalia that they're selling in there, it's probably something that would probably take place after hours anyway, in terms of some of their business. My concern remains the same, and something I chatted with Ms. Ryan about, who's more of an expert on dealing with the community. Have you reached out to any of the members along Beecher Avenue to get any of their support or hear any of their feedback? I know Ms. Wozniak mentioned some of the feedback she's gotten, and like I said, every night I come off that service road and come around that corner, and those cars are lined up on both sides, sticking out in the street. Some are parked diagonally into the sump area.
Yeah.
The ones in the parking lot are not necessarily just using the stalls. The side of that parking lot on Beecher, you can't get in and out of it without cars moving. And then we have a letter from a law firm across the street, I believe, or a landlord across the street, who has some of the clients of your client parking in there, and again, coming in and out of a bar, walking across Carlton Avenue is probably not a safe thing for us to encourage. I agree wholeheartedly that from what was there to what the current owners have done is a great market improvement that we want to see in the town, but sometimes the area that you're trying to put it in just doesn't work and creates problems for the neighbors and the community around there, and also safety concerns if people are walking across after leaving a bar out into a street or trying to cross Carlton Avenue. So I may be on the minority on this on the board. I don't know where the rest of the board stands, but I have real concerns expanding the square footage for use as the bar versus storage, which then encourages, I understand it's currently operating like that. Maybe that's why there's a much larger parking problem now, because it's being utilized like that, to the point of it's bringing in more people from around everywhere for the dark part of it. Doesn't necessarily help the argument, it's hurting it in terms of the number of parking spots that you have there. That is my concern. I don't have a problem with the business. I like the business. It's much better than it was, but we need to address those concerns from a safety perspective of people walking across Carlton Avenue. Another landlord or another property owner has complaints about people parking in there, and then you go up and down Beecher where people live, and there are cars lined along the front of their property. And that's the concerns I have. Feel free to speak on that, or I'll turn to any of the board members that have questions.
Yes. So just speaking to the attorney's office across the street, I apologize, I don't recall the last name, but Ariel is the fellow's name, and he did call my office. I spoke directly with him. I did, speak with him regarding his concerns. I put the owners who were here tonight, the 3 owners, in touch with him. They reached out to him directly. Initially, he had planned on coming to the planning board hearing and speaking. I presume he chose not to, because he did speak to the owners directly, and they are trying to work with him to manage some of the offset parking complaints that he had mentioned. They have also spoken directly with some of the owners at Beecher. I would let them speak to that. But in conversation with them, they have had conversation directly with Beecher and trying to resolve some of the, the parking and as was stated. They have, a cleaning crew which does visit the site, et cetera, and make sure things are picked up, things like that. So, and at the same time, as Kelly had referenced, we did get engineering comments and engineering review plan. There was commentary to the plan. There is limited improvement that can be done, but certainly we would work, the owners would work to contribute to that improvement plan along with the landlord.
I'm going to turn to Mr. Brown, who has some questions.
Yeah, I mean, I would be willing to reserve tonight and give you an opportunity to work with planning to address some of these issues, but with a mini-mart there, and Ms. Wozniak, I don't know, maybe you can tell me what the parking regulations would be for a mini-mart.
A mini mart would be 1 per 150, so it's the same as the tattoo parlor that was there previously.
So that would be the same? And
Yeah.
based on the current design right now, what would the occupancy be for the current bar?
I'm sorry, the current occupancy for the bar?
Right.
So the occupancy is a tricky subject, honestly, right? And it goes back to some of the prior conversation with the Tesla and the parking and stuff. Occupancy per code, if we looked at the occupancy per code, it's 73 persons in that, in the total space of the Cork and Bowl. That includes first floor and that's cellar area. when we go back to the Shortstop Inn, per the approved plans and CO, they had a noted occupancy of 53 persons.
So that was what was hanging on the wall.
I
Occupancy
think
allowed
the
53
big difference was certainly the storage space, right, the change in that storage space. But if you actually look at where the storage space was taken out versus the dart lanes are occurring in the new plan, you're not going to be standing in dart lanes with active, dart games. And that's really what their business is about, is the, I'll say the dart gaming, the leagues of the dart gaming. But to my point, the prior Shortstop Inn, when you look at that occupancy breakdown, which is literally stamped on the prior approved plans, if we did FOIL and look at that record, there is no value for standing space, which is a current code requirement, which wasn't on the prior 1991 approval. So when we look at that standing space requirement on that same application, that standing space requirement would add approximately 12 to 15 people to that prior
Let's just go
approval.
with a round number of 70. And how many parking spaces do you have in that parking lot?
There's 16 spaces.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that seems to be the hurdle,
Mhm.
is the parking. I mean, a well-run business, I'm sure the community would welcome it.
Mhm.
But I don't know if they'd be willing to welcome the cars that are up and down the street.
Mhm.
So, like I said, I would be willing to reserve decision tonight. Depends on what my colleagues also believe, to give you an opportunity to work with planning to see how it
Yes.
could be mitigated, but
Certainly.
that would be my opinion.
Any further questions from the board? Ms. Ryan?
We touched on the matter of outreach. As was mentioned before, we did receive a number of emails from the adjoining property owners, the residential property owners, who expressed concern about existing conditions on the roadway. They think it will just be exacerbated by the so-called expansion. I know you're not expanding the space, but the increase in customer traffic, we'll call it. So what I'd like to see is somebody reaching out to these folks and speaking with them and seeing if you could come up with some kind of creative solution. I'm sympathetic with your tenant because I know your tenant does not control the property. That's owned by somebody else. And we've all heard these stories before, and they're kind of limited to what they can do because they don't own the property. But I think reaching out to the folks in the neighborhood would create a lot of goodwill. And I, for one, I don't know how my colleagues feel, would like to see at least an effort be made in that regard.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Any further questions? So, I mean, if we think there's hope and you're willing to work with the planning staff and see if something can be resolved there, if you're willing to take Ms. Ryan's comments into consideration in terms of speaking to some of the neighbors that are impacted by this. We have a high hurdle here. That doesn't mean you can't overcome it, but
Yeah.
I mean, the current conditions, if you drive by there in the evenings, especially on the weekends, or cars up and down that street, people walking across Carlton Avenue, if the landlord across the street restricts you even further out of there, it's going to push more cars out into the street. There is a new tenant in there which doesn't have a proper permit yet, but there's also then another storefront that's vacant because I believe they only took half of that spot, if I'm not mistaken. So there's
Correct.
might be someone else
Correct.
trying to come into there, which again would increase the need for even more parking. So if you can make it work, we're willing to listen and hear what you have, but I have a lot of concerns that it may be a great business and a great operation. It's much better than it was, but it may not be the right location for it.
Okay.
So, Mr. Brown has a...
And also, I'm sure that your client is looking to have tournaments, which would draw a lot more people for a dart tournament than the typical 70 people that you would have there. I'm sure it would draw a much bigger crowd.
Yeah.
So, with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to make a motion.
So to your point, Mr. Brown, they do currently have a tournament league, and that my understanding is that that tournament takes place on a Saturday, once a month, and the maximum capacity during that tournament, 30 people. So this is not. It is my sincere opinion. This is not a bar that's going to see the occupancy of the 70 people that we see on plan. It's going to see, and I do appreciate the parking, statement about parking. We will work with planning. We'll look at, some alternate means, et cetera. But this is not so if we want to discuss limitation to the occupancy there. Certainly be willing to do that, but it's not a bar that's going to see the occupancy of 70 people.
Okay. How many employees work at the bar?
There's 1 to maybe 2, but most nights one employee.
One person for this 30-something?
That's my point. There's no food service, right? There's not a kitchen prep, et cetera. These guys are there to play darts in between some sessions, shoot a game of pool. There's limited table space, et cetera. So it's, and in terms of parking, right? We have to remember in today's world, we have people that, if they're gonna show up and have a couple of drinks, a lot of people are Ubering, right? We have a much smarter group of people. Secondly, the way the darts work, it's in leagues. So typically it would be a group of 2 or 4 people playing another group, and lots of times those people are carpooling, right? So it's...
The reason I asked you that, I was hoping the answer was more than one, because those are the people that are not getting drunk and probably could park or working out an agreement with the landlord across Carlton Avenue.
Yeah.
That would free up parking spots, but only having one is not
Yeah.
going to help you with that. So I was trying to find a way to make this work better. I would just say this, and we're going to reserve decision, you can work with them. I hear everything you're saying about carpooling and Ubers and the rest, but there currently exists a parking problem there. And I'm happy to meet you there on any Friday or Saturday night to go down Beecher Avenue and see what we're talking about in terms of how it exists. It does go on. Some nights it's much worse than others. But there is currently a parking condition with all the stuff that you just said being factored in. And that's what you need to overcome. So
Yeah.
I would defer to the board and reserve decision and see if something can be worked out.
Okay.
Mr. Brown?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing and reserve the decision tonight, to give the client the opportunity to work with planning staff and come back.
There's a motion by Mr. Brown to reserve decision, close public hearing and reserve decision. Is there a second? Second by, is that Mr. Moriarty? Mr. Moriarty, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, we are reserved.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
you.
your time this evening.
Item 6 was adjourned. Item 7, Planning Board Application Decision Item, Paul Pedretti, PB 2025-024, south side of Montauk Highway, County Route 27A, approximately 2,990 feet west of West Avenue, Oakdale, 400 Montauk Highway. Applicant requests Planning Board approval for the construction of a new gatehouse. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Charles J. Broody, architect, 30 Bethesda Lane, Sayville, New York, 11782. Representing the WORC, West Oak Recreation Club, located at 400 Montauk Highway in Oakdale. As stated in the call, we are seeking special permit approval to construct a new security gatehouse in the facility, which will be replacing the existing security gatehouse. We have secured DEC approval, because we are in a wetlands area. There will be no sanitary related to the gatehouse, so we do not need Board of Health. And I'm open to any questions if anybody has any.
Thank you. Ms. Wozniak?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The property is located on the south side of Montauk Highway in between the West Sayville Golf Club and the Bourne Mansion, and it's the site of the West Oak Recreation Club, which is a seasonal residential community. As part of the original approval for that seasonal community, covenants require planning board approval for all future accessory buildings. So tonight, the applicant's looking for approval to construct a new gatehouse slightly south of the existing gatehouse, which is proposed to be removed. The new gatehouse will have a peaked roof with horizontal siding matching the residential style of the community, and it will only be visible on the property as it is located approximately 700 feet south of Montauk Highway on the private road entrance into the community. So based on this, planning recommends the board grant the application, subject to the applicant obtaining the required building permits.
Thank you. Any questions from Ms. Wozniak or the applicant? Not seeing any. Is there a motion? Mr. Moriarty.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion that we grant the application subject to securing a building permit for the gatehouse.
Motion by Mr. Moriarty to grant the application, subject to obtaining a building permit for the gatehouse. Is there a second? Ms. Ryan? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The application is granted. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Town Board Application Decision Item, 10 Grand Boulevard Realty LLC, CZ 2025-009, southwest corner of Grand Boulevard and Howells Road, Deer Park, 1050 Grand Boulevard. Applicant requests a modification of covenants and restrictions associated with TC 5097 in order to increase the outside storage area for construction equipment. Site plan modifications may be required as part of the application. Good evening and welcome back.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for having us back. We appreciate you. Rachel Shelfo, Farrell Fritz PC. I'm a land use, municipal, and zoning partner at the firm. With me is Jackie Paranto, who is the principal of Key Civil Engineering. She will assist me with this presentation. We have a couple of exhibits that Jackie's handing up. And then I know it's been a long evening, and I will try to keep my comments to as succinct as I can possibly do so. All set, Mr. Chairman? All set? Okay, so just to remind the board that this is an Industrial 2 property, 12-plus acres, located at 1050 Grand Boulevard in Deer Park, right? First lot in Islip, next to the last lot in Babylon. There were previous approvals on this site obtained in 2012, 2013 for outside storage of construction, rental equipment, and rigging equipment. COs were actually received in May of 2015, including a CO for the site work that was completed at that time. Also at that time, my client worked with the town to repair a drainage problem that was existing in the community, not on its property, but my client paid for the drainage installation from Grand Howells, where there was a flooding issue, through its parcel, and through the school district Brentwood property in order for that drainage to go all the way through and to drain into the back of the school district's property. My client did that work at its own expense to fix an issue at the corner of the property. As this board knows, June and July of this year, we appeared before both the planning board first and the town board for site plan modifications and the modification of deed covenants in connection with the expansion of the outside storage on the premises. The landscaping screening, I think you guys were pretty happy with at the time. What we were proposing was over and above what was required because we wanted to be good neighbors to this community. The proposed landscaping includes 3-foot-high landscaping berms, 6-foot-wide plateau, double row of 6-foot-high evergreens on top, starting where the outside storage starts on Howells and wrapping all the way up and around the property next to where this parcel touches the residentially zoned property that is the Brentwood School District, which you guys all know, it's the middle school. The planning board hearing, June 18th, no opposition. The application was approved at that time, subject to the negotiation of conditions. We talked with this board that night about sidewalks, because some of you had a question about sidewalks and whether or not they should be installed. We expressed our concern at the time about creating a false sense of safety by putting sidewalks along that curved corner, right, that goes from Grand Boulevard to Howells. And at the end of that meeting, we left this meeting without that sidewalk requirement. Thereafter, we appeared before the town board. That was roughly 1 month later, July 17th. Again, no opposition. We had support from the Brentwood School District. We reached out to them in advance of those meetings. Again, the hearing before the town board was fairly straightforward. No opposition. However, the town board did want a requirement, and they did ask for sidewalks. Their reasoning was they observed some folks that had been walking in the area, and while sidewalks weren't required by this board, and I submit that sidewalks are this board's jurisdiction as per the town's land development regs, My client agreed to the sidewalks because the town board wanted sidewalks. So we wanted to put in those sidewalks and, again, be a good corporate citizen of the town of Islip. So what brings us here tonight, I think you all know, is the conditions of approval, the main one that we want to discuss being the landscape mitigation fee. So as you all know, the fee is calculated at $6 per square foot for any square footage that is below the 20% required landscaping. Again, this all comes out of the regs, the planning department regulations for site plan and subdivision, land development regs. Initially, based on the straight reduction, that would have yielded a fee in the amount of $430,000, okay? So that kind of put a pause on things before the town board, and we met with Sean and the planning commissioner. And then we thereafter had a subsequent meeting, again with Sean and the planning commissioner, Mr. Colgan, and the planning commissioner, as well as the town attorney's office. And that's where it kind of, we got to the point of, hey, let's go back to the planning board and present this to them. They have the ability to grant a waiver, so lay this out, what you're laying out to us, to the board that has the ability to grant a waiver. So that's what brings us here tonight. So thank you again for hearing us. So the landscape mitigation fee, as stated, 20% of the lot is required to be landscaped. That comes from the land development regs. The provisions provide for a community improvement fund, and that fund is going to contain the monies that are collected for any waiver mitigation fees. Then that includes sidewalks, curbing, or landscaping. So any waiver that you guys get or you ask for goes into this pot for community development funding, right? And the purpose of that is that those funds can then be used elsewhere throughout the town where they might be determined to serve a greater purpose, okay? And as this board knows very well, the jurisdiction is with this board or the planning commissioner to impose reasonable conditions. And reasonable conditions mean what? It means those that are directly related to an approved site plan and any work that is resulting from it, right? So any harm that might be resulting from the application, that's what you guys have the ability to protect that harm, right? And impose a condition of approval to mitigate that harm. So we submit that the landscape mitigation fee is unreasonable in this instance based on the costs that my clients will be expending to greatly, greatly improve this property. And I want to talk a little bit about that. So my client, through its site plan meeting, right, has proposed planting, screening, berms, buffers, fencing, everything that we could possibly do to improve this site. So then we left you guys and we went to the town board, and the town board wants sidewalks as well. So just to talk a little bit about that and some costs. So we're talking about landscaping, screening, fencing, 3-foot-high berm, irrigation, all of the above, double row of planting, everything to be as beautiful and well screened as humanly possible. The landscaping and irrigation cost estimate is $227,000. The 6-foot-high green slatted fencing that goes on the inside of the berm has not been priced yet. So there's a pause in that one. The sidewalk requirement, which came out of the town board review, it's 949 linear feet of sidewalk that is being asked to be added. And that goes all the way from the town of Babylon border, all the way around the corner to where our property connects to the Brentwood Middle School property. So that's why it's so long. This site is so big that any of these improvements are like supersized, right? The 949 linear feet of sidewalks is an estimated cost of $330,000 because it requires demoing what's there now, the sidewalk restoration, the sidewalk installation, excuse me, and restoration, right? There's also, because of the grade change that exists there on the corner, the grade change is kind of like sharp. We also have to put in a retaining wall, you guys. So in addition to putting in the sidewalk, we're going to need a retaining wall to go around to support that sidewalk around that corner, okay? So sidewalks were discussed with the planning board. We kind of got through that issue. They weren't required in the 2012-2013 site plan approval, which we got a CO for the site work at that time. And we know the cost would be $330,000. So what is great about your town and dealing with the planning department is we were able to sit down and actually talk to people and kind of go over this and see what could be done to mitigate this, and not one but two meetings, one with planning, the second with planning and the town attorney's office. So we received some guidance from planning regarding how you can mitigate this fee, right? And it was suggested at a recent meeting that gravelled areas can be excluded. So in this case, there are two gravelled areas that are existing at the site. And remember, these were on the 2012-2013 plan that was CO'd at the end of the day and got approval and a CO for site work only. So this is gravel area number 1 behind the building, and this is gravel area number 2 in the front of the building. Sorry, Jackie. Excuse me. So again, these two areas are previously approved. COs were issued for that site work. We're asking for confirmation this evening that those gravel areas, if they are to be counted, right, to help this calculation and mitigate against this overall calculation, that they be counted as permeable space as they exist now, so that these areas can be applied to reduce the landscape mitigation fee. And we understand that that area is not a one-for-one. Yeah, it's half. So it's for every square foot, we only get credit for half, and we know that, and we're okay with that. But the thing is, why am I bringing this up and asking this board for some relief? Having to redo those gravel areas in any way, so taking out, scooping up what's there that's already been CO'd and kind of having to reinstall new gravel, that's in and of itself another huge project. And we have an estimate for $704,000 for the costs of doing that in the back area. So that's why we're asking for some clarification in the conditions to sort of make clear that what is there now and CO'd is going to count as, at that half rate, not at the full rate, at the half rate that's set forth in the regs, and that could help us, and that could help mitigate this very high cost. The sidewalk is a new requirement at $330,000. This board is the board that can grant waivers. We are thankful for this opportunity to be back here in front of you. We implore this board to waive the landscape mitigation fee in its entirety so that my client may continue in its proposed course of implementing these changes and provide an example for this board, for the town of Islip as a whole, of how industrial properties with outside storage should be improved, screened, and landscaped in order to operate within the town of Islip. Jackie, do you want to go over the numbers? And then we just have a couple of clarifications, which I'll be super quick on, from the planning memo of proposed conditions, just because we don't want to have to come back to you guys again if there's any confusion as we now move to engineering, right? Because that's our next step.
So your real ask is it's in its entirety? Or that's just putting it out there as your opening bid?
Well, as I said, as a board member and as a planning commissioner, this isn't let's make a deal, right? I'm sure you may have said that yourself sometimes when someone comes up to you trying to haggle. I truly feel, sir, that with the amounts that are being extended here to make this a first-class industrial site, that I feel that those costs far outweigh a landscape mitigation fee. I also feel that a landscape mitigation fee is needed when you're not doing the job. And I feel here we are more than doing the job to protect from any adverse impacts associated with this storage on the property, sir.
We'll hear the other presentation, but I think you're not meeting at 100%, but we can discuss that after the
Okay.
next presentation.
Absolutely.
Good evening, Jacqueline Peranto, Key Civil Engineering, 664 Blue Point Road, Holtzville, New York, site engineer for the applicant. Good evening. So just briefly, just to explain the color plan that I presented to all of you. So the areas that are shaded in green are true landscape areas that are calculated at 100% their square foot area. The yellow and blue areas that you see bordering the southern portion of the property is the 50-foot required buffer. And so as Rachel had indicated during our conversations, planning was able to agree that we can calculate half of that buffer towards our landscape area, which we're very grateful for. Again, at the time of our prior approval, the code required a 25-foot buffer, of which that entire buffer was not included in the landscape numbers. Now the code, just recently this past year, has changed to 50-foot. So 25 foot of it is not being counted in our landscape area, but the other 25%, or 25 foot is being permitted to. So those two numbers equate to 62,717 square feet. The area of stone on the west side of the building plus the area of stone on the south side of the building equate to 66,352 square feet. And when you have that number, we get a total of 95,893 square feet of landscaping provided. And the code at 20% of our lot area, which is 12.1 acres, it's a very large site, is requiring 105,403.4 square feet. So the deficit is 9,510.4 square feet, to be exact, which is equating a little bit more than a $57,000 fee. And in addition to the areas that we're providing, we're going to create a berm, we're going to put double rows of evergreens, we're going to put a fence, we're going to put a deciduous hedgerow, we're putting in sidewalks with retaining walls for pedestrian protection. We're putting in 24 street trees where there's only 5 currently today along the entire frontage. So we are significantly improving the current property with this additional landscaping. Behind this sheet in your packet, I only had provided 3 of several views that we had previously given the board, but those are renderings to depict what the landscaping is going to look like and how it's going to present itself from the road, which is, you know, a complete buffer. These trees also grow very quickly. So within a few years, they're going to double in size and have an even more bigger impact. So I think with that, we are respectfully requesting that the board waive the mitigation fee based on the level of improvements that are being proposed with this application.
I was just told that I may not have expressed that the landscaping and irrigation is $227,000 and that the sidewalk work all in is $330,000. So we're looking at roughly $550,000. So I just wanted to make sure I said that and that it was clear for the record. Mr. Chairman, if it pleases the board, may I go through a couple of clarifications in the covenants, or would you like Sean to go first?
Did you plan on going through those clarifications, or do you want her to do it?
She can go through it.
Is it part of your presentation, or no?
It's not.
It's not, so go right ahead.
Me first?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So Jackie's going to assist me with this, just in case we get very numberish. So item number 8, site plan. We would just ask that the latest drawing be referenced therein, because right now it's referring to June 2nd. So it's a minor, some of these are like super minor. 8A,
Should I read along what it is?
oh yeah, please, Jack.
Okay, so the latest drawing is revision 6 dated September 23rd, 2025. And that's the plan before you.
Thank you. In terms of 8A, outdoor storage shall be limited to designated areas on the approved site plan. Each designated area, let's see, outside storage shall be paved, consisting of asphalt, recycled concrete, asphalt, or gravel, at the direction of the town engineer. So we would just ask that it would be as per the plan that we're submitting, because then we're going to kind of know, whatever you decide, that there's a set number of what the calculation is going to be, right? If it's open-ended, that it's not based on our plan, but it's based on the interpretation or the discretion, I should say, of the town engineer, then we're not leaving here with kind of certainty. So that's why we were asking that that would refer to the, the site plan that's presented before us. On the next page, EV stations, we agree to two EV parking spaces, which means like one unit covers 2 spaces. So the second sentence this is E in the middle of the following page. It says, the second sentence says, the parking lots shall be designated for 10% of parking spaces to become future. We just thought that was a little bit confusing and contradictory when we agree to 2 spaces. We just didn't think that second sentence made sense. We thought it was a little cloudy.
Is there something you're specifically proposing to change it to?
Oh, just if the second sentence comes out and we agree to 2 total number of parking stalls set aside for EV charging stations, we're happy to add them to the site.
I'm just going to turn to Mr. Colvin right now on that, just, we can go item by item.
So, I mean, I don't know if the existing wording is confusing. The idea behind that is that 10% of the spots could accommodate future electric vehicle charging. So whether you need additional transformer or different infrastructure to accommodate that long-term, that would be done as you're doing the site work, so it doesn't all be ripped up in the event that, you know, you need more electric vehicle charging stations. So I don't know if that's cost prohibitive or,
So,
you know.
Jack, 10% of our spaces amounts to how many?
14.3, so 15.
Yep.
So for an additional, so a total of 15 EV chargers is what you would expect in the future?
Correct.
At what point would they be constructed? Like, so 2 get constructed now at the time of site plan approval,
Mhm.
and 13,
It would probably at the whim of your client. The idea is that to provide those additional stalls, let's say EVs take off, I don't know if they will, the ongoing policy that the county has proposed and we've since adopted is that rather than you rip up all your parking or perhaps landscaping, which obviously we're trying to avoid very specifically tonight,
To
that,
put in the larger infrastructure now?
right,
Okay. We weren't getting that, so we'll talk to our client about that, okay?
sorry, I didn't read it that way.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Sean?
Excuse me. I think it's a little unusual to go through the CNRs during the meeting, and it's really not going to give me, I'm only speaking for myself, sufficient time to assess this application if we're making changes at 9:30, 8:30 at night. Is there a reason that this wasn't addressed earlier?
So we received an updated version today, and I think that we've had, there's been a little bit of confusion in the past about what some of this means, and that's what kind of caused us to have this a little bit of a delay after 2 very successful hearings with respect to the landscape mitigation fee, right? So I think we're looking at this now, trying to make sure that there's not going to be any further confusion down the line.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate your efforts. I'm just saying for myself, to go through this now, I've never seen that at a meeting myself, but it's only my second meeting as a planning board member, so I could be
Well,
wrong.
welcome to the world of the planning board.
Thank you, thank you.
We have 3 more comments, so I don't know if that
Sure.
helps you.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes a difference for you, Ms. Ryan?
I mean, I'm just speaking for myself. It's going to be difficult for me to vote on this application tonight when these changes are being made right now. I did look, I visited the property, I did my due diligence based on the information that I had. I'm just saying for myself and just the way I roll, I just want to have up-to-date information before me, before I take a vote, not like discussing it right before I take a vote. That's just me. It's just other people may feel differently. I'm just telling you how I feel.
So in speaking with Sean, I think we wanted to make sure any concerns were put on the record tonight, and that's kind of where we're coming from. Not that I thought you would decide these on the spot, because I wouldn't do that to a board member, having sat on boards myself. And I think we just want to make everything as clear as possible for the record, and then, having Sean advise you guys as to what planning thinks. So I didn't want to be remiss.
You have 3 more, you said?
I have 3 more, sir.
Let's go through the 3 quickly, and we'll go from there.
Very quickly. Bottom of page, well, I don't know what page we're on, but number 10, landscaping. Street trees shall be installed and maintained as per the plan that we're submitting. We're submitting 29 total proposed and existing street trees. And I think we wanted to rely on the plan, because when we start to add too many more trees, we are now blocking site visual. So we have a pretty substantial planting plan. And then at our last meeting, we talked about, this board asked for it actually, these low-lying shrubs here, right? And those were put into this whole corner from the Grand Howells corner, and they're not high, right? But if we have to now put the trees every 25 feet on center and add an additional 20 or so trees, we're now creating blocking of viewpoints to the entrances and along this curve, which you yourself asked for low-lying hedges, sort of.
Meanwhile, we can exempt those other violet site trees.
I mean, to Ms. Ryan's point and to your point, I just try to bring this together. I'm not sure why were these issues tried to be resolved prior to tonight's meeting? Obviously, it's your 30 minutes. You can put on the record what you see fit during your putting together your record, but these seem like minor issues that probably could have been resolved between staff and the applicant discussing it. I know Sean's taken notes on a lot of these can be modified, but it's your 30-minute presentation how you want to use it. But to Ms. Ryan's point, I can see if there's something that's a major controversy or something that requires the planning board to weigh in on that decision versus whether or not the staff can decide that on their own and bring it to us. But it's your 30 minutes for the rest of the
Well,
the
I'm
points.
almost done with my 30 minutes. So,
There you go.
screen plantings, as shown on the conceptual plan, we agree with that. This is item B, right below landscaping. The height and design of the berm may be modified at the direction of the town engineer. What happened there was the berm might actually technically need to be lowered slightly for drainage purposes. And so to say modified, we wouldn't want it to inadvertently be raised. So that's a matter of one word. And I did mention that to Sean earlier today. Again, street trees as per plan. I think a lot of this comes down to just referring to the plan itself. And then the most important one, sir, which I was looking for some guidance from this board on, is the gravel and the permeable pavement, which I spent a good amount of time on my presentation discussing. That, looking for it to say, item, 3, as previously approved and depicted on the site plan, that the gravel and permeable pavement shall be credited towards the landscaping requirement, right? So that there's not a question when we go to engineering at the end of the day. Because we still have a rather, lengthy review before us. Anything that I forgot to say, guys?
You got it all.
Did I make the 30 minutes, sir?
I think you're okay.
Good.
Anything else for your presentation?
I think that's it.
Okay. I'm going to turn to Mr. Colgan for a report, and then we'll come back for questions.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll truncate this a bit. So the landscape impact fee is $6 per square foot of the minimum required landscaping that is not provided. The applicant is providing just under 40,000 square feet of landscaping, excluding the 50-foot residential buffer area, which comes out to about 7.85% of the overall site instead of the required 20%. So based on these figures, the town's estimate, the landscape impact fee would amount to $328,506. After meeting with the applicant and discussing mitigation strategies to reduce the fee, planning staff recommended crediting pervious areas, exclusive of the structure, so that is the permeable gravel area that Michelle was alluding to earlier, as partial landscaping at 50%, and again, the landscaping buffer beyond the 25 feet in depth. So half of the 50-foot buffer, we would recommend crediting as landscaping, because that's not included in the overall landscaping fee. It's also worth noting that the required residential buffer area was increased to 50 feet in depth in April of this year for industrial 2 sites, shortly before this application was filed. So again, there's a little bit of a transition period. The applicant was not aware, so we're willing to recommend that the additional buffer area that wasn't previously required could count as landscaping. Lastly, the sidewalk construction along Howells Road requires more complex engineering than a typical sidewalk installation due to the topography of the subject site. This incurs additional costs and limits some of the ability to provide additional landscaping in that particular area. The town would be unable to install the sidewalk with a typical mitigation fee that we would ask of the applicant due to the grade change and the installation of the retaining walls that would need to be there. So if the board accepts this methodology, the staff estimates that the fee could be reduced to a total of approximately around $50,800 to $57,000. That final amount would be confirmed during site plan review, because again, we don't have a formal site plan. We don't know what's ultimately going to be permeable. We don't know if landscaping is going to change here and there. So we don't want to hold to a steadfast number, but that's the ballpark. With regards to the covenant changes that the applicant is requesting, the street trees, it's my understanding that engineering doesn't allow obstructions and any sort of site visibility concerns, and that could either be evaluated by the town engineer or traffic safety. Obviously, we don't want trees where it's going to cause accidents. I don't have a fundamental disagreement with that. And then again, the permeable areas that the applicant wants to be sure will be credited. I did have a conversation with the town engineer earlier today. He said he's okay with the permeable pavement. It's just as long as it's not in permanent parking areas or in the drive aisles, those really need to be asphalt. So, I think that adequately addresses the concerns. We're certainly representing that those permeable areas can remain. I just don't want to guarantee that if there's a unique situation where a permeable area needs to be removed for one reason or the other, not to handcuff the town engineer. But again, we're representing cooperation that that concept is sound, and we would be committing to keeping it in any way, shape, or form so that they're not necessarily beholden to a higher fee.
That was 8A. Those were 8A questions. Was that the condition related to 8A, or is there something else on that one? That was the outdoor storage.
So 8A, the outdoor storage area shall be paved consisting of asphalt, recycled concrete aggregate, or gravel at the direction of the town engineer. That is form language. That's when a site hasn't been laid out previously. I mean, again, I've said, Chris Poker, the town engineer, has agreed that could remain gravel, those outdoor storage areas, just not the parking or the drive aisles. So I hope that clarifies on the record. We can certainly wordsmith that with the town attorney's office or the applicant, but we don't have an objection to cleaning that up.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Go to Ms. Ryan first.
Ms. Shelfo, I think your application is the second or third tonight that is here as a result of a violation.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
I appreciate you making lemonade out of lemons, but my question is this. Of all of the so-called improvements that you're proposing, you did quantify them, I appreciate that, but how much of those improvements were supposed to be done with the originally approved site plan only in 2012?
So that would be 0, because that's not the nature of the violation. We did all of the site plan work that was required in 2013, and we received a CO, which I'll be happy to hand up to you, for the site work at that time. That wasn't the nature of the violation.
Regardless of the nature of the violation, what I'm trying to understand is some of the things, my understanding, I could be wrong, is that some of the things that you're proposing to do as improvements were things that were supposed to be done in 2012. Are you saying that's not true?
No. We received a CO for the site work in accordance with the 2012-2013 site plan. The expansion of the outside storage was what triggered the violation. The storage was more than what it was approved at that time. So that was the nature of the violation, not that we weren't not that we didn't do something that we were supposed to do in 13.
Okay, there seems to be a disconnect, because I just conferred with the representative of the planning department, and he said that, that you do not conform with the originally approved site plan. So I think overall, with the late notice, with the discussion about the CNRs, some confusion here about what was conformed with, what wasn't. I hear you loud and clear, you're saying absolutely everything was conformed with under the original conditions of the approval in 2012, I believe it was.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're sincere in what you're saying. I'm getting different information. I need time to just work through this a little bit. Like I said, I did visit the site. The site looks really good. You know, it looks like it's very well cared for. I don't have a problem, you know, with the business or what's being done. I just want to make sure that I have all the information, that it's accurate information, and then we're not setting some kind of precedent here for non-compliance and really letting people off the hook with a fraction of what they would have ordinarily paid. So it's just something I need, that's how I feel.
Okay.
Okay, and I just need to work through that. So those are my comments.
Yes, and
Thank you.
the question was a little different than, I think, where we got at the end. So yes, we did comply with the site plan and we got a CO, but yes, we also were in violation in that we expanded the outside storage.
I think, well, here's where the confusion maybe is on this. I think this, what originally was required was not done, but a CO was issued anyway. I think that's where, no?
That's not my understanding.
Let me just say, you complied with the site plan, and this is just, hear me out, you complied with the site plan, and after you issued the CO, you expanded the other thing after you received the CO.
There was a violation
Right.
after the
And
CO
did
was
you-
issued. That's why,
And there was a site work only permit issued because at the time, the project consisted of building expansion, a building expansion on both the east and west side. Those building expansions did not happen. It was determined they didn't need the interior space. So they had gotten just a site work permit, did all their site work, got a CO for all the site work, and then, you
Right.
know, they
So
then
it's-
went ahead and did expand their outside storage area beyond what was approved, which is what created the violation. And that expansion got themselves closer to the roadway, so there was some existing vegetation that was eliminated in order to do so, and that's why we are mitigating, and that's why we're providing additional, you know, the landscaping that we are along Howells Road.
They complied with it.
But, I'm sorry, I just want to, but the request of, you know, any request at the time of that approval, whether it was for a buffer, like the 25-foot buffer, all of that was done. It was, you know, the install, the trees, everything that was asked for under that application was done.
the board member to the right of the chairman kind of nailed the status,
Yeah.
I would say.
Okay. So I mean, the main issue before us tonight to consider or weigh in on a little bit is where we stand with the mitigation fee. The other issues, I think, need to go back with Colgan and the planning department and see if you can resolve the issues related to all the things that you raised this evening on the record
That is the largest issue, sir.
before you.
Absolutely.
So while I feel there is, I mean, my opinion, that there is some merit to lowering the mitigation fee, I don't see the merit in going down to zero based upon Mr. Colgan's analysis tonight. So I would support Mr. Colgan's analysis and how he differentiated why you should get credit for certain things and why that's above and beyond what would be considered normally and why we should consider that and why it would bring it down to a number somewhere between $50,000 and $57,000. So hearing your points that you've raised on the record, bringing it down to zero, I've heard everything you said. I've also weighed into that what Mr. Colgan has brought up and how he factored in what he factored in. And I come to the conclusion that I side with Mr. Colgan's analysis, which certainly brings you down from the number that you would get at $6 per square foot down to what Mr. Colgan brought you down to. I'm one member of the planning board, but that's my opinion on that. I don't know if others want to comment on that. Mr. Moriarty.
Mr. Chair, yeah, I would agree with your analysis. I mean, I think a reduction, ballpark number of 80% in a landscape mitigation fee is very, very significant. The question I have, though, and maybe Sean, you can answer this, how do we typically treat these graveled areas when we do this calculation? Because we're opening ourselves up to a precedent here. So we need to be consistent on a going forward basis. If this applicant's going to get that treatment, then we've got to expect that other applicants are going to be coming in asking for the same treatment. So I don't know if this is a common issue. It seems like the site plan has a significant amount of gravel, which actually I'm not even sure why it's there, to be honest with you. I don't know if it's drainage or what it might be, but is this, Sean, if you could talk a little bit about how we typically treat this for calculation purposes and whether or not this is likely to be a recurring issue or headache for us on a going forward basis if we take this approach.
Well, you're correct in that this basically would serve as a precedent. If the board grants this tonight, I will certainly represent that any future application that provides permeable pavement would be given the same consideration. With regards to how we came up with, and there's nothing in code, there's nothing in the subdivision regs, I want to be very clear and upfront with that. Where we came up with crediting the permeable pavement as 50% is because part of the function of landscaping is that it does drain, it does contain stormwater, and has that aspect of environmental benefit. It also has additional benefits for wildlife, pollution, aesthetics, screening, stuff of that nature. But again, we're trying to come up with some sort of policy, which the planning department has been working on for some time. We felt that because there are some environmental benefits to the permeable pavement, we would credit it as 50%. We would want to encourage it, then not encourage it in those areas where it could be accommodated. It's a better form of paving than straight up asphalt when it can be accommodated and functional.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that, but I guess, you know, I'm nervous about unintended consequences. And are we, particularly in sites of this size, are we then going to be encouraging more of that to be baked into the site plan so they can knock down your landscaping fees? I mean, again, I'm not opposing it at this point in time. I think that the number is excessive, I think, personally, when I hear it. But I completely agree with the chairman. We shouldn't be going down to zero, but I'm more concerned that we're going to take that step and we're going to encourage applicants to do exactly this, which will drive their mitigation fee down. And maybe we want that as a policy. I don't know. But I just sort of want us to think that through before we take that step, or at least think about that.
If I may, just a note on precedent, just because you were the first gentleman to ask that question, a board member to ask that question. I think that someone would have to have also had a previously approved site plan where gravel was already permitted on the property and CO'd, right, as part of their site work only permit. So I think, putting on my municipal hat, you could feel pretty safe and secure that going forward, someone coming in and trying to do this new, to wipe out their total landscape mitigation fee. They would not necessarily have this helpful fact in our case, where we've already been before you guys, and we got approval for those gravelled storage areas. So I just wanted to say that, because I thought it was very important, and I didn't mean to interrupt the board's decision process.
Anything further from the board on this? Yeah, I mean, certainly we're gonna have to reserve. I think Mr. Colgan will have to differentiate this property from general property that's seeking the same thing. I think to the point you just made in terms of the gravel is something that consideration to try and bring it down. Mr. Moriarty's point of whether or not such a large number is feasible anyway is another question, but I think certainly the board is cognizant of the fact that precedent setting
Understood.
is problematic, and that's why we would have to differentiate this. I think Mr. Colgan has, for me, differentiated, and your point on the record afterwards certainly adds a little more to that. But I think that's where we're gonna have to end up at. But I have not heard anything from Mr. Colgan or from you that would get us to the point of zero. Anything that you've stated on the record, anything Mr. Colgan has stated would get us to zero. I would certainly, based on his differentiation, be more comfortable with a different number that's lower than what's currently proposed.
Just for the record, sir, I could submit those estimates, and I could also submit the CO for the site work. I just got a little bit too busy to submit that, so if I may submit those for the record, if the board
Mr. Brown?
has no further
Yeah,
questions.
Well, I mean, I would concur with your, I do build parks for a living, so I would concur with your expenses when you have elevation changes, retaining walls, drainage, because I do it every day. So I do know what the costs are associated with that, and I would concur with what you were stating with your numbers. So I have no issue with that. On the other hand, listening to Mr. Colgan go through it, everything from the town's point, everything, I would concur with him, with his mindset and the number that he came with, which I think was around $50,800.
Can you hear? Can I just ask you, for the purpose of the court reporter, that you're... Oh, just let us know, we'll pull these closer.
We'll get another mic next week.
Sorry.
So, like I was saying, I would concur with Mr. Colgan in his estimate and everything and how he got to it. Feeling for your costs and everything and agreeing with you with what they do cost. So just overall, with the costs associated with what you would have to go through. On some of the minor things and everything, the trees and that, I didn't want to see trees originally. I like the low shrubs.
Yeah.
It's actually a display with all your beautiful equipment there, along there, and I don't think the engineering department would allow that because it's a corner there, turning and everything like that. So those things can be worked out with planning very, very easily.
We
I don't
agree.
think that's something we really have to discuss tonight. So I do agree with you as far as it being a very unique project, and where I don't think it would be setting a precedent because we pre-approved it, with what's there, and then you came back to us. So that was something that the town attorney probably have to tell us that, yes, you're correct, that would not set a precedent. So with that, I would think we'd have to reserve tonight and go through these things and then come back. And give you the opportunity to sit with planning. Let's get this worked out.
And Mr. Colgan, just to clarify something, does the planning department and planning board normally consider the cost of putting landscaping back in that's been taken out, or the cost of a sidewalk? Or, I mean, if you buy a piece of property and you're going to do work on it that has certain conditions, elevations and the rest, and it costs more to do that, is that normally a reason to offset a mitigation fee?
I know of no precedent where that's occurred.
I certainly hear what you're saying, that it's costing you more money, but I'm not sure there's anything that says because it's going to cost more, because a piece of property has different elevations, that should give an applicant credit. I understand what you're saying, and you're putting a lot of money into the property, but I'm not sure where the legal justification is coming in. That should be used as an offset to a mitigation fee.
So sometimes there's two things that I could say to that, and I will say them very quickly. Sometimes a regulation is unreasonably applied against a certain parcel of land. And I think that when you're looking at a 12-acre parcel of land, and you need that reduction and to pay that $6 per square foot, which is the same that a smaller lot would be paying, right? It's almost like sometimes you see municipalities do a sliding scale for that reason, because once you're applying it on a lot that's so big, when that percentage comes out to so much square feet, it's almost like it's having an not intended adverse impact on a larger parcel. So that's one thing. The second thing is, at the end of the day, this board and any board that's imposing conditions have to be rationally related to a harm. And so if we are preventing any harm by doing $550,000 in plantings for screening and putting in sidewalks, which the town board and traffic safety thought would be safer, right? Even though we might not have initially agreed. And we're doing that as well. And we're doing fencing and a berm and landscaping. And so where then does that landscaping fee, what are we mitigating with that fee at that point? That's kind of what my argument is with respect to that there always has to be a rule of rationality and rough proportionality between the harm and then the condition. And is the condition solving that harm? Does that make sense? For those of you who are attorneys, the whole Nolan-Dolan Supreme Court line of cases.
Right, I guess the part that I'm maybe not fully understanding here is the property was, and Sean, correct me if I'm wrong on this, was previously compliant, was in a superior landscape condition. The landscaping was removed without approval, and now you're coming before us and saying, we did something without approval, we are now deficient in which we previously were not deficient in, and you should disregard the fact that we disregarded town code and approval process, ripped out all that landscaping, and now because the cost of us ripping that out is excessive, that we should ignore all precedent, all town code, and everything else from a condition we self-created.
So I don't know that that's exactly what I'm saying. What I'm saying is...
That's the facts. I don't, you might not be saying that, but those are the facts.
My clients came in immediately to try to rectify the situation, retained Jackie's firm and my firm, who have previously worked on this project, to come in and get this sorted with the town. They want to be a good corporate citizen of the town of Babylon and make this look like a first-class landscaped, screened industrial property.
So obviously, we have some unanswered questions tonight that I think we're going to need the planning staff to report back to us on, and possibly the town attorney to report back to us on, so we can try and bring this to a resolution and a close.
So I know that some of the questions of the board, like Ms. Ryan, were to sort out the conditions with planning, right? So I am asking, is our next step to revisit the condition sheets and the covenants and restrictions with the planning department? I'm seeing some yeses. Okay.
Are there further questions from the board? Is there anything
So
fur-
decision reserved?
We're going to make a motion in a second. Anything further from the
Okay.
applicant? Anything further from you? Anything further?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I would
Mr. Moriarty.
make a motion to reserve decision tonight, let the applicant and the planning staff work out the issues that we've been discussing and bring this back, frankly, as quickly as we can.
Thank you. It's a motion by Mr. Moriarty to reserve decision so you can work out the issues that have been laid out on the record this evening. Is there a second? Mr. Brown, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? We are reserved.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn? Mr. Moriarty, second. Mr. Brown, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? We're adjourned.